I'm Rosie Kennedy, instead for Jeff Hubbard, who will be along shortly. We'll open the meeting of the June 8th, 2020 Board of Selectmen, Hamilton Board of Selectmen meeting with a roll call.
Roll call.
Darcy Dale, aye.
Okay, Darcy Dale, aye. Bill Olson.
William Olson, aye.
Sean Farrell.
Sean Farrell, aye, present.
Rosie Kennedy, present.
And Jeff, are you now present?
Can you hear me?
Oh, we can. Yay.
Baby. All right.
Jeff comes through at the last minute. All right.
So we will turn that meeting over to the chair, Jeff Hubbard.
Thanks,
We've
Rosie.
done roll call.
Thank you, Rosie.
Thank you, Rosie.
All right. Welcome, everyone, to the Town of Hamilton Board of Selectmen and Finance Committee joint meeting for Monday, June 8th, 2020. We'll start off, as we always do, with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay.
Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag
Of
the United
States of America and to the republic
for which
which
it
it
stands,
stands,
one
nation,
nation, under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
visible,
with liberty
with liberty
and justice
and justice for
justice
all.
for all.
Terrific. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Board and committee openings, just a couple here tonight. We have a Board of Appeals opening and an opening in the Hamilton Historic District Commission. I should take this opportunity to thank Ed Howard. He has stepped down from his position on the Historic District Commission for Hamilton after serving many, many years. And his service to the town has obviously been very much appreciated, and his commitment to making sure that Historic District Commission is intact has been appreciated and will be missed. Now is an opportunity for a public comment. If there's anybody on the line, it's hard for me to see given my situation tonight. But if there's anybody from the public that'd like to make a comment that's not on the agenda item, this is an opportunity to do that.
So Jeff, it's Russ here.
Hey, Russ.
Hey, hello everybody, Chairman Hubbard and other members of the Board of Selectmen. Thanks for letting me speak. I wanted everybody to be informed that as of Wednesday of this week, we're gonna have, this Wednesday, we're having a meeting of the Affordable Housing Trust at 6 o'clock. It'll be a Zoom meeting. We've got a few items to attend to, and I'm going to be resigning my post as chair and member of the Housing Trust. I am backing up towards the end of the month and heading west in further semi-retirement. It's been great to be involved with the Housing Trust. I've had the opportunity to have Bill Olson on board, Bill Wilson, of course, Rosie, and it's been a lot of work, but out the other end comes some good things like we're seeing now here in town. Joe, your guidance has been appreciated, and your kind approach to things and your thoughtfulness has been really terrific. So we
Nice
hope.
of you to say, Russ. Thank you.
Thanks. Well, I mean it, and it's truthful. So we've done some good work over the past year and a half. More good things happening here in town, and the trust will continue on without me. Thanks, everybody.
Oh, Russ, thank you. You've been a strong leader in that. I enjoyed working with you for a year, and we're going to miss you because you had a good leadership, a very strong, clear, concise message you brought to the community. So thank you for volunteering for so many years.
Thanks, Bill.
Second that.
Yeah, Russ, thank you very much for your service. I know it's been a lot of work and not easy all the time, and probably one of the most difficult positions in town. And you took it on and led well, so very much appreciated.
Thanks, Chairman.
Yeah, good luck, Russ.
Thank you.
Where are you moving, Russ?
Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Nice.
Oh, beautiful.
Well, hopefully they have haircuts there now and razors.
So it's funny you say that, but I've been told I'm not getting one until we're out there because the COVID is super low out there, number wise. So
Hey, Joe, we're getting some feedback on your mic. So
I'll turn it off. All right.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So Yeah, I hope it'll happen.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
All right, Russ. We'll miss you.
I'll miss many of my friends here.
Yeah, we'll miss you.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Did you have something, Darcy?
Yes, I was wondering if there would be an opportunity to discuss the 1/12 budget option that we just received from Joe and Marissa. Would that be later on in the agenda?
Yes, it is
Yes.
on the agenda.
Thank
It's on the
you.
agenda.
Clarify that. Thank you.
No, no problem. Okay. Now is the time, though, for selectmen and town manager reports. Darcy, did you have anything since you're on now that you'd like to talk about?
No, I'm all set for now. Thank you.
Okay. All right. How about, does anybody else, selectmen, have anything they'd like to report on?
Just that the we'll talk about it later as well too, but the town meeting advisory group has, I think, it almost completed their task. So I think we're ready to go on the 20th. So we'll talk about it a little bit in the future, but everybody did a really good job of being part of that, and everybody contributed. I think we'll be good to go on the 20th. So we just have to do a little, pray for good weather. And I'm jinxing it there, but that's the only thing that I think that we can't control. So
Right.
that, and then obviously I just want to thank Chief Russ Stevens putting together the event last Tuesday. So it was very quick. He organized with some private citizens to put it together, and whoever went out there, it was just it was good to just get involved and do and recognize the events we're going through in the world and our community. And so I want to appreciate him for putting that together. It wasn't an easy thing to do quickly, and it's a good start. So we look at it as a good start to better things to come.
Great. Thank you, Bill. How about Sean or Rosie? Do you have anything you'd like to?
Nothing for me tonight, Jeff. Thank you, though.
Okay.
I have just a couple of quick but important things. Would like to give a great big shout out to the DPW planting all the trees that were donated by the Institution for Savings. They look fabulous and they have green bags. So well done, DPW, and thank you on behalf of town citizens who also very much appreciate your efforts. And then the other thing that I wanted to talk about was also collaboration with DPW. I know they're here tonight, but and they will speak to this more formally, but I've met with a couple of people, and I've met with Pete Cobb about the grub and is it a degrastation over at the cemetery, and I'm really enjoying having a voice in the process, because the cemetery represents 300 years of history in our town. It has graves going back to before the Revolutionary War, and it's an amazing piece of history. And so I'm very excited that we're going to work together to put it back into more of a pristine form with grass and getting rid of the grubs. So thank you again for DPW for working so hard on this.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, I just had a couple things. One is, Bill, in addition to what you had to say, and thanking Chief Stevens, a private resident came up with the idea for the rally that was held last Tuesday, Kim Strovnik, and contacted the chief on, I think, Monday at noon. And by Tuesday at, what was that, 11 or noon? It was about a 24-hour period. There were probably between 400 to 500 people there. And I think it's just a really good reflection on our community that people cared so much, and that the chief was able to organize things. It was a peaceful rally. And I think they're just such a great cross section of our whole community, from young to old. And it was obviously very moving. An emotional event. So thank you, Chief Stevens, and thank you to Kim Strovnik for putting that together for all of us. I also wanted to thank everybody in the staff of the school that put together the parade this past Saturday in lieu of graduation, which was supposed to be scheduled, but of course has been postponed till July. That obviously took a lot of work to put together. And it was really, really amazing to see the number of residents come out to support the seniors in our high school in lieu of a graduation ceremony. So I'd like to thank the school staff who put that together. And many of them were there either at the high school or along the parade route from all grade levels, cheering on the students in our community.
I think it should continue as a tradition. I think it was successful, and it's probably something we could do year after year. So, good job.
Yeah, I agree. And thanks also
Yes,
to the fire
may I interrupt for just a moment?
Sure.
Yeah. Procedural thing. Does everybody have a copy of the open space plan?
Yes.
And have open to the goals? Because if you don't, I'll email it to you while you're doing this portion of the meeting.
We have it, and we have it, and probably Joe will share it. So we're all set. Thank you, Richard. We all have it. Yes.
Yeah.
Need that. I'm going to ask you specific questions. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. And then finally, the Town Hall Building Committee met, I guess it's been a week or so ago. So things are moving along. Obviously, with what's going on with COVID-19 and our budget and the forecast, that could have an impact on how things move forward and when things move forward with the town hall. But they are moving forward with design and development, and are on schedule and are on target to get the designs that are required to put the job out to bid. They are coming in on budget or under budget so far, which is good news. The Town Hall Building Committee will be meeting again on Wednesday at 10 o'clock, I believe. So it continues to progress as best they can, doing it all virtually, of course. That's all I had. How about you, Joe?
I didn't prepare a written report for tonight's meeting. I'm sorry. I will get that done and share it with you all. But just a couple quick things. Officially, the town hall is back open for regular business hours. We did a soft opening last week where we had all of our staff back at their assigned stations working, but we didn't announce it. We wanted to make sure that the steps we had taken to keep everybody safe were working, and it was a nice way to have some people coming into the building and kind of without having to establish different hours or anything, kind of just test out what we've done. It worked pretty well. We opened officially this week, had everybody, we put out a notice that the town hall was open. We had a lot of visitors today, but not too many, and everybody's doing the right thing, wearing masks when they're in the building, et cetera. Also wanted to let people know that the Board of Health is sponsoring a forum on the COVID for tomorrow night, a Zoom virtual meeting that again starts at 6. The details for that are on the town calendar. So if you go into the website and clicked on the link clicked onto the town calendar, you can find the link there and copy and paste it into your browser. I don't want to take up too much time. You have a very full agenda tonight, and I know people don't want to listen to me necessarily, so I'll leave it off at that. But yeah, I think the event tomorrow night would be helpful for people who want to learn more about COVID. And thanks.
Okay, great. Thank you, Joe. Okay, on to the consent agenda. We've got a few things here. Approve the minutes of the previous selectmen meeting without dates. Do we need the dates?
Yes. Yes, we do.
Do you have those, Joe?
Joe, you're on mute. Sorry, Joe.
He's on mute.
Is Mary Alice is on? Can she hear us and can she tell us which ones they were? Because I had there was such a log jam of them from going a while back, and then I know she and Michelle were working on them. I didn't want to leave anything out.
Yes, hi. There are 3 sets, and I'll get the dates for you in a second. I just have to look them up. Okay, 1 sec.
Okay, I'll move on. While you do that, I'll move on to the other items on the consent agenda. Thank you, Mary Alice.
Yep.
Okay, and as we discussed, and I didn't mention part of the retirement of Ed Howard, but accept the retirement of the Hamilton Historic District Commission and the CPC member, Ed Howard. Again, thank you, Ed, for all you've done for the town. You're going to be missed. Accept the retirement of Board of Appeals member, John Rodenheiser. Approve Ed Fund banner to be hung at Patton Park. And accept a letter from the Cape Ann Veteran Services. While we're waiting for Mary Alice, and jump in, Mary Alice, whenever you're ready, but is there, Joe, is there a letter or something more formal we can do to recognize Ed's work for the town on his retirement?
He's on mute again.
I'm trying not to interrupt you guys with, keep things going. We can certainly put together something, if you'd like, a recognition of Ed, have him on one of the virtual meetings, or, present him some kind of a citation for his services. Just let me know that you want to do that, and we'll do that.
I think that'd be nice, yes.
How many years has he devoted to the town? Do you know?
I don't know offhand,
Wondering, 'cause
but
that's a lot.
we'll find out. We'll
Yeah.
find out in preparing the citation for him.
As long as I've
It's
been here. I
been
mean,
decades.
Yeah.
I mean, it's part of the script. It's part of the script later to talk about who's going to be representing the state when at our town meeting, and maybe have them be prepared to recognize them as well too. So
That's a good idea, Bill. Okay. Mary Alice, we're ready when you are.
unmute.
Get Mary Alice, you're on mute. Mary, there you go.
Sorry about that, everybody. It's May 4th, April 27th, and I think it's April 13th. Let me just make sure. And April 13th. And the 13th was a joint meeting that was with the Wenham Board of Selectmen. I'm going to check on the other ones. May 4th was just the Board of Selectmen. And the 27th was also just the Board of Selectmen.
Great, thank you, Mary Alice.
Uh-huh.
All right, so clarify the first item on the consent agenda, that would be approve the minutes for previous selectmen meetings, May 4th for the Board of Selectmen, April 27th for the Hamilton Board of Selectmen, and April 13th, which was a joint meeting with the Wenham Board of Selectmen.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Darcy?
Dale, aye.
Bill?
William Olson, aye.
Sean?
Sean Farrell, aye.
Rosemary?
Rosie Kennedy, aye.
And Jeff Hubbard, aye. Rosie, we had a citizen mention that you might want to use your full name when you're voting.
All right. Rosemary Kennedy, aye.
We're being watched. It's important.
That's a good thing.
That is a good thing. That is a good thing. Okay, on to the agenda, everybody. We're going to start off with Richard Boroff and the Open Space and Recreation Plan presentation.
Okay, thank you. Part of the whole purpose for the open space plan, well, first let me back up and say I want to thank Joe Sacchi, S-A-C-C-H-I, Metropolitan Area Planning Council. He wrote the plan in its entirety, and we the Open Space Committee provided him with the goals. So huge thanks, because if he hadn't done it, we'd still be doing it. The prime reason for doing the plan is you can get funding apply for grants for specific kinds of things, and it's noted in the plan what they are, or not in the plan, but in the beginning of the plan, what kind of grants you can write. I'm going to go directly to the goals, because that's what's of most concern. You can read the verbiage at any time, and if you have comments or questions, just send me an email, rboroff@hamiltonma.gov. Okay. Does everybody have a set of the plan thing in front of them, or are you coming? Who's flipping that? Are you just flipping it, Jeff?
Yes, we all have copies, and Joe is putting it on the screen for us.
Yeah, I'm trying to fast forward to the goals right now, Richard.
Goals pages, please.
I'm working on it right now.
Okay, there you go.
Just go one.
Okay. Yep, thank you. Preserve and protect the town's open space, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What I'd like you to do is let me know if you have comments, something that you want added. distracted or whatever. Is there somebody online that has children online? And
Richard, just go ahead.
Yeah, the only thing I'd add in goal number 1, Richard, would
Yeah, I'm
be
listening.
water sports like kayaking, canoeing, boating, since we have rivers and a lake.
Mm.
Okay, so do you want them? You want those to be added, right?
Yes, that would
Okay,
be my suggestion anyway. I mean, you just
fine.
asked for input. I'm just throwing it out there.
Yep, that's what I want. Say it to me again, please, so I can write it down.
Kayaking, canoeing, and boating, swimming.
Okay, I'm writing. What I might do is just summarize that as all water.
Sure.
Is that okay with you?
Where'd you look?
With you? Right. Anybody else got comments on goal number 1? You folks hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Anybody else have comments on goal number 1? Joe,
good.
you've got up goal number 2. Anybody got comments on that? Provide, expand, and maintain adequate facilities and resources. Continuing efforts to install a turf field. Len Dolan has a committee that is working on getting funds raised for that. I don't know where he's at with it, but I know that he's doing it. Any other comments?
No, looks good, Richard.
Okay.
Can we add comments later? If we come up with something, can we get in touch with you to add comments?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, that would be fine. Okay. 2.2, determine the maintenance needs. Well, I know what they are of the grass fields. It's tremendous because if the fields are overused, they get destroyed, which is why the turf field would be put in to keep, because you can use it and overuse it, which you can't do with a grass field. You have to be very careful with how much you play on a grass field. Anybody have questions on that? Okay. Go ahead.
No.
Or with other town boards, the creation of a town conservation fund. Joe, what do you think of that? How feasible do you think that is? Set up funds, appropriate funds into a dedicated conservation fund. You got any comments?
I think it's something we can probably discuss with the Board of Selectmen and the FinCom. I think it's something, if we were going to do it, we probably want to do it through town meeting. It's a great objective to have. I think it will take some more input because if you're going to create that kind of a fund, you're going to want to do it with the with recognition of your existing liabilities and responsibilities. So certainly it's
Right.
great to have it in a plan like this so that we can look at it and have the proper boards and committees look at it and determine if they want to make a recommendation to town meeting. So.
Okay. Next one, engage with CPC to potentially request funding for medical property. That is in here as a placeholder, just in case. There is really, at this point, no potential that I know of for that to happen. But if it's in here, we can work on it. Okay. Let's go 3.3, support from private partners to coordinate acquisition of Meadowbrook. That goes with 3.2. Can you scroll down there? Go to 3.4. Where's next there, Joe, please?
Looks like that's the end of the slide as far as I can see. I've
Yeah.
got 3.1, 3.2, and 3.3. It doesn't show 3.4. Next slide says questions.
So does anybody have any comments or anything you want to add to the goals section? Or any other comments?
I think that's good, Richard. I think maybe if people haven't looked through the whole document, not just the summary, they can send you their comments and questions. But I mean,
Okay.
I just want to take a moment here, if I may say, just Richard, I'm really glad we're kind of at the tail end of this. It's been a long time we've been trying to get this done. I'm just really glad we're at this point and wrapping it up to move forward with it, because it's been a long road. But I'm glad that we got the help from MAPC and your help and your board. It's been good to get it wrapped up, and I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you. The real credit goes to Joe Saki for doing the hard writing, and then our committee did the goals with input from people like you and so on. Thank you. Okay.
Great.
And
So Richard, are we at this point yet where you want the plan like this is always a living document. It can always be altered, but it sets a framework and a path for how the town might want to move ahead. And as Richard said, the important thing is it gives us an extra box to check off when we're looking for grant money to accomplish some of these goals. Certainly, we can't go after DCR money for rails and trails and things like that without having an adopted open space and recreation plan. Richard, is this at the stage? I know that it's been approved at the state level. Is this at the stage where you'd want the Board of Selectmen to vote tonight or at a future meeting to accept the open space and recreation plan officially so that we can check that box off as well?
if they're ready to vote, I'll take a vote. If they're not, we'll wait.
Okay. I know you just got you got this presentation last week, and the open space and rec plan has been up on the town website for about a month now, and it's been vetted. It had a lot of public hearings. The Open Space and Recreation Committee that worked with Richard, but also with Joe Saki, the planner from MAPC, worked for several months. They were in our town hall building almost every Thursday for a couple hours every Thursday for several months. They had a lot of public input. It's a good plan, but like I said, it's a living document. It will change, it will modify, but at least it sets kind of some parameters that the state knows we've been looking at it and that we're thinking about it, and that'll help us as we seek grants in the future. So,
I'm
what's the
comfortable
board's
voting on
wish?
it tonight if everybody else is, and like Joe said, I think the main point here is a living document. So if we have any changes or adds to it, we just update it,
Right.
That's right.
Reasonable. Yep.
And it's good for 5 years, right, Richard?
7 years?
Oh, is it 7 years? You might be right. It might have been changed to 7 years. Okay. Sorry.
So if nobody protests, I'll make a motion to accept/endorse the open space and recreation plan as put forth.
Second that.
All right, any further discussion? All right, all those in favor, Darcy,
Darcy Dale, aye.
Bill,
William Olson, aye.
John,
Sean Farrell, aye.
Rosemary,
Rosemary Kennedy, aye.
Jeff Hubbard, aye.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Richard, thank you very much for your help. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for asking for that, Joe. Appreciate it very much. I'm
problem.
going to sign off. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks, Richard.
Okay.
Thank
Bye.
you, Richard.
Yep. Good night.
All right, terrific. An update from Tim Olson on the Hamilton water system. How are you, Tim?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, let's
How
do
you guys
step
doing?
in.
Everybody hear me all right?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. Well, I'm enjoying the last bit of my vacation down here on Block Island. So if I cut in and out, I'll join you by my phone. But so far, so good. But I appreciate speaking with everyone tonight. I do also have our consultant from Dewberry Engineers, Peter Calderazzo, on this call as well. He's much more versed in this, the details of what we've done over the past couple months, trying to obviously improve the Hamilton's water supply, treatment, etc. So I'm going to give you a little summary real quick, and he can get into the details of what we've come up with. So over the past couple months, we've looked at a couple different things with the treatment. Looking at a couple different alternatives to a pre-treatment system that we're all familiar with, and what we had some funding over, I believe, the fall town meeting, special town meeting. So what we've done is we've looked at a couple different alternatives, looked closely at them, visited a couple sites that they currently have that same type of treatment, and looking at two different alternatives, looking at the maintenance, the effectiveness of treating our organics that are present in our water. There's two different treatment alternatives. Like I said, Peter will get into that, but we kind of dove into that with cost, maybe some cost estimates, which he'll present as well. We also looked at, presently our Idlewood 2 well is offline because it has high organics in it. We did a pilot testing over the last couple months to try to hopefully hit a new potential satellite well. We drilled, I believe, 4 test wells, and we did some pump tests on 2 of the 4. And unfortunately, those, they were better in organics, but higher in iron. Too high for us to treat effectively. So didn't pan out. We thought maybe we're going to need Idlewood 2 eventually. That is a primary source for us. Right now it is offline to try to decrease the THM levels in our system. But eventually we will need that. So we're going through an effort to see which, what is more effective, what is the best use of our money. I think we appropriated $1.5 million. Is that should we use that money to drill a new water source or for pre-treatment on our existing sources? So we explored 2 different alternatives with the pre-treatment, as well as drilled some pilot wells for a potential new satellite well. And Peter, I'll turn it over to you to go over kind of what we came up with and what we're presenting, hopefully to get a recommendation to move forward from the Board of Selectmen tonight.
Okay. Thanks, Tim. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me here tonight. I'm glad to see everybody's in pretty good spirits given what's going on these days. Guess everybody's doing well, so I'm glad to see that. Tim, did you happen to distribute the summary that I prepared? Oh, it's right there. Okay. So I know you guys got a lot of agendas.
And I believe Joe is putting it up on the screen.
Sure. Yeah, I see it right now. Okay. So yeah, as Tim said, we've been busy the last couple of months looking at some things in the water system, both for source and for the plant. So we just submitted the draft letter report on the complete evaluation of the plant. Tim had asked me to prepare a little summary for you, just to kind of hit some of the highlights of that report, and also a summary table that kind of easily kind of breaks out some of the advantages, disadvantages of each of the systems that we ended up evaluating. So I'll give you just a quick summary. Again, I know you guys are busy. So over the course of a couple of years, there's obviously been some ongoing issues with TTHMs in the system, and we've been working with the town and the water department to try to resolve those. And so due to that incident back in November, we've been sampling for the last 2 years on the water system. So we've got some pretty good feedback on the system and what the issues are. So based on that sampling, we determined that the majority of the THMs is really coming from the organics in the water that Tim had mentioned. Primarily 2 sources, Idlewood number 2 well and Idlewood number 1 well. So looking at those 2 wells, we decided that we need to evaluate the source water, see what we can do to both minimize THM formation potential and stay in compliance with the Mass DEP, and also be able to utilize these wells. As Tim said, these 2 wells are the largest producers in the well field, and to not use them on a regular basis really puts a strain on the other wells. So we're trying to look at ways that we can maximize the use of the well field and still be in compliance with DEP. So the report, so we evaluated a couple of different alternatives that we could use the sources. And both of these treatment strategies, really what they do is, well, let me take a step back. So there's different ways that we can treat the ongoing issue at the plant. The 2 most accepted technology would be either to remove the TOCs from the water, which is really the source of the THMs, or to remove the THMs after they form, and hopefully they don't continue to form in the system. So we looked at both of those treatment options, and the results of the report, we determined that for the town, the best route would be to remove the TOCs It's the most effective way to do it. It's the most reliable to ensure that there's no future exceedance. It just seemed to make sense to do that, since the source water is the issue. So to deal with the source water first makes the most sense. And we've kind of reviewed that with Mass DOT, and they seem to be on board with that approach as well. So in researching what available technologies we could use at the plant to remove the TOCs, we came up with these two technologies, and they're on the screen now on that table. So the first one is the what they call MIX ion exchange resin system, and basically what this system is, it's relatively new. We went up and visited a system in Maine they just put this system online. It seemed to be working pretty well. It's a different source water than Hamilton, but the idea is the same. Basically, it's just like I don't know if anybody's familiar with like the water softener system. It's just the salt. It's basically a large water softener, and they use salt as a brine solution to generate the resin. It's obviously a different resin. The resin is designed to react with the TOCs as opposed to the iron and the manganese, but it works on the same premise. And there's some advantages and disadvantages to that system, which I'll go through in a minute. The other technology was using GAC system. And GAC is used for both in the treatment of water as a filtration, and also used to remove TOCs. So we looked at both of those systems. Those seem to be the two most favorable to evaluate. As you can see in the advantage column of each one, they're both effective in removing the TOCs. We had both vendors did some lab testing on the raw water that we gave them from the plant, and they both achieved greater than 60% reduction, which is pretty good, and that was beyond what our target goal was. They both can be easily integrated into the existing system, which is an important thing too. We don't have to touch any of the ongoing system. The system will stay as it is. We can design and construct either one of these units without really disrupting any of the ongoing service. And then maybe a day or so for the tie-in, but that's about it. So that's another pretty good advantage of each one. Each does not require any chemical addition. The ion exchange system does require like a brine solution to be mixed every day. But other than that, there's really no chemical addition. One of the disadvantages of the MIX system, unfortunately, like I just said, it's somewhat of a proprietary system. And there's really only one that we know of in New England, which was the one in Maine. So there's a little hesitation, I guess, to really move forward with something that is kind of unknown. And also the other issue with that is that system really it's a single vessel. So one vessel treats the incoming raw water. So if that vessel goes down, the system is down. There's really no built-in redundancy. Whereas the GAC system has 4 filters, the system that we had chosen. So there's some redundancy there. So if you lose one set of filters, you have a backup, so you can still treat water if you need to. Which is why it's a little more expensive, but in the long run, it could save the town an issue, if they lose one of the filters or not. And like I said, they both will address the THMs and the HAA5s, which hasn't been an issue with the town yet, but it's still a byproduct of the stage 2 rule. So you still need to meet that. One advantage of the GAC system is that it will address any future issues that come out with the PFAS requirements. The MIX won't really deal with that, but maybe Tim can touch base a little bit on this. But so we just had some sampling. There's some new regs coming out from Mass DEP on meeting PFAS and PFOS. I don't know if you guys are up to speed on that, but there's been some issues. I think the Cape is dealing with it a lot, but it's been found in waters, and it's becoming regulated now. And so there's a requirement that all water systems do some sampling to get a baseline of where they are and what they need to do. So the town has already done this ahead of schedule, so we know what the PFOS levels are in the raw water. They're not high. It's present, but it's not high. It's on the low side. But in talking with Mass DOT, they really want us to kind of evaluate systems that might address this in the future if it comes up. And the GAC fortunately will treat any PFAS that's in the raw water, whereas the MIX won't. So if we went with the MIX system and later on there's an issue with PFAS, we have to develop something else on top of the MIX. So that's one of the advantages of the GAC's system. Both systems will require a new building to be constructed to house it. There's not enough room in the existing plant to really build to put these. They're somewhat large. GAC's system is a little bit bigger, so it has a little larger building. You can see the construction costs are pretty similar. The MIX, we estimated about 1.8 million, and the GAC is about 1.98. But both those numbers have a pretty high contingency. So, in terms, if you take out the contingency, they're pretty close in cost. As far as operational costs go, the MIX will be a little less expensive. Because like I said, you only really need to add salt on a daily basis, which is not very expensive. I think we estimated the operating costs on a yearly basis to be like $36,000 a year, which is not too bad. The GAC has a little higher operating cost, mainly due to the change out of the media. One of the disadvantages is that as the GAC media is spent, as it's used to treat the raw water, over time it'll be spent, and it needs to be changed out. You really can't generate it on site, so it has to be taken out, new media brought in and replaced, which is really the only cost of the system. Other than that, there's really no other operating cost with that. But that can be expensive. So the more often you have to change out the media, obviously the more operating costs on a yearly basis. But there's things we can do in the operation to try to extend that life as much as possible. Right now, we're estimating that the media might have to be changed out every 7 to 8 months. But it could be longer depending on the need and how we operate the plant. But that operating cost of $90,000 a year is based on changing the meter out every 7 to 8 months. So that's kind of where we are now. I mean, we got these two treatment alternatives that both are effective. Both will achieve the goal we're trying to achieve at the plant. One's a little bit more expensive initially, and one has a little higher operating costs. So we just want to get the board's feeling on it as far as what they want to do. I mean, obviously there's a financial component to this, which we have to make a decision on what's the best. I mean, it looks like the GAC system is a more proven technology. Something the Mass DP actually has dealt with, and they'd probably be more apt to approve that with less permitting and other issues. The MIX system, like I said, there's not one in this state. So I'm not sure what Mass DP is going to make us do in terms of doing some additional testing to confirm that the technology will work. So that's a conversation we're going to have with them at some point if we decide to go down that route.
Tim had a couple questions on the and you as well on the MIX. This is Bill. But the thing I liked about the MIX system was the I mean, you say it's new, but it's it has been around for probably 20 years or so, correct? So it's not new. I mean,
right. It's new to this year, right? It's been correct. Yeah.
It's been used. It's used overseas. It's not used in the States, but it's been used in other parts of the world successfully. So I mean, I don't think we're afraid of Hamilton to be cutting edge, but we needs to be able to be approved. But the thing I liked about it was that it seems to be more of a sustainable method for water treatment. In terms of what you read about, I mean, we're not relying on carbon. Carbon's been used as a filter for hundreds of years, right? So, and so you got to rely on, the GAC is relying on carbon, which is a commodity. So we're going to buy a commodity that prices go up. That's why it's more expensive, because you're buying carbon.
Sure.
And you can't control. So I kind of like the idea that it was more of a sustainable, that it was it was lower running costs. It's sort of, I think it's the next. I mean, I think that. I think it's hard to sort of forecast, but I would say that my accidents would be more preferable, and GAC systems will be less preferable as we move forward. We would be at the front end of that, which is a risk we would have to take. But I kind of like that idea about the sustainability and not have to worry about purchasing carbon. But so those are my those are sort of my bits. But the other things I was going to ask about is the other things that sort of the pros and cons of, like, I read that the MIX can't really deal with like hydrogen sulfide or chlorine or things like that. So you had mentioned the is that part of the PFAS, that are we limited by MIX where it can't pick up other things that might happen over time? Or is there ways to sort of modify the system if we find that we have high levels of something that may not be picked up by that system?
To my understanding, the MIAC system is really designed to treat the TOCs. So if you look thinking taking out like color or anything else in the water, or at some point the PFAS, it will not treat that.
Or
So that was-
possibly any other future compounds that come into the water system, you know?
Right. It means right. It's not going to remove any VOCs like that, or it's just really the resin that we get is really designed. They have different resin systems that can that are obviously designed to treat different components of the water. This one here is this ion exchange system is really just geared towards TOC. So and that's really what it's only can really take out. I mean that's the issue we have with the plant now is the TOCs. I mean the PFAS is something that it's on the verge of being an issue. So we were just looking at it to make sure that if we're going to spend $2 million now to treat something, be nice to have that system to be able to treat something else in the future without having to spend another $500,000 to kind of deal with it. I'm not saying that we're going to have a problem with
I would
PFAS.
like to say that I like the redundancy factor with with that second, the GAC system. I think it's really important that you have redundancies in case of the worst situation. And the other thing I like is that as we move forward, we're going to be finding more and more instances of maybe higher concentrations of the PFAS and the PFOS. So I think if you're going to make an investment like that, and they're so close in dollars that we can get more for our money if we go with the GAC and have more safety for the citizens of the town. So I'm leaning toward the GAC for those reasons.
Yeah, I like Darcy's points. I like in Peter's points. I like the GAC is going to cover more ground for us, kind of in the future. Yeah. And our issue with our current plant is that it's pretty much a beta version that was a new technology, and we're kind of stuck with it. We're trying to improve it. And I believe, and maybe Peter, I'm sure with the MIAC system, we'll have some type of a hauling cost, correct, for that contaminated water, the salt and stuff like that?
Right. So yeah. So you can see on the table, we're going to generate about 8,000 gallons a month, which the preliminary design has like a holding tank for that. And whether we have to dispose of that, similarly to what you guys do now for the backwash tanks at the plant. And Tim and I actually discussed this. There's other options to deal with that waste. I mean, one is you can spray it on the roads instead of having the ice. You can use the salt brine, but then you have to buy the equipment, and it's a whole different process. So
right, and we don't even know if it's approved by the state yet to do it, because I don't think anybody else is doing it. Right, we would have to lobby for some state regulation or law to change.
Right. I know other states are doing it. There's no one, no other towns or cities in Mass.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's the problem. Is that, that's not, unfortunately, the MIAC system has some pros. It doesn't seem to be as flexible enough for what we'd want to be able to provide. But
I mean, I like the idea of kind of a big water softener for us, but I think it's kind of a one-trick pony for us. The GAC is going to give us more options down the road with the PFAS and stuff like that, especially with that's kind of the new hot thing as far as testing and regulations. And I think that's going to be the future from the EPA and stuff like that on these regulations. And Peter, you can probably say you've seen a trend in that.
Yeah, I mean, we had a meeting with Mass DEP on the PFAS directly, about a month ago, so 2 months ago, Tim. So yeah, they're very hot on it. Like I said, they're coming out with regulations soon that all water systems need to test for that. And then they have like a treatment protocol. If you're in a low range, you need to do these type of monitoring. If you're higher range, you have to do increased monitoring and treatment. And like someone had said earlier, the PFAS, I mean, it's in the water. I mean, eventually it's probably going to increase because everything else seems to increase. And, so at some point it could be a future issue. I mean, I don't know. I can't read the future, but it seems, given the history of what's happening in the state, that it's probably only a matter of time before we have levels in the water that we're going to have to be concerned with, so.
I mean, most of the things in the GAC disadvantage column is really just comes to cost, right? Which is not a huge difference in cost. But one of the things I didn't understand was it says it will require additional connection to finished water line. Why is that a disadvantage?
Well, it's just something that you don't need to do with the MIAX, but it's only, it's a 40-foot piece of 8-inch pipe that needs to tap into the finish line. It's not a I mean, it's already incorporated into the cost. It's not, it's done. It's done, and it's not
It's just a difference. You're just identifying the differences. Okay, it's not really a disadvantage. It's just sort of a
yeah. It's just
difference. Okay.
it's extra work, but it's not, in the big scheme of it's not that much. Yeah. I mean, the GAC has to be backwashed initially during the startup to kind of get the media to settled and whatnot. So we need a source of backwash, and then at some point, even though I did estimate here that the GAC media will have to be backwashed, every so often, maybe every 7-8 months. That might not be the issue because the vendor said, depending on when the change out is and how bad the water is, we may hit breakthrough in the media before we need the backwash. So
Right.
that amount of volume that needs to be handled will certainly be less too. So right now I'm making an assumption, but hopefully that assumption is higher than what we need. So
Will this have any, what's the word I'm looking for? Our plant runs at a certain capacity, right? During high demand, low demand, et cetera. Will either of these systems have any stress on that water through the plant? Or is it's kind of a just flow through the media? There's no slowing down or anything like that other than just the backwash?
So on the normal operation, the water is flowing through each of the systems. The systems are designed up for a flow of 1 MGD, which is 700 gallons a minute. So right now, the most that we pump at the plant is like 650, just because of in order to maintain the iron and manganese in the finished water to where we need to be. So we'll probably never pump more than 1 MGD. That's why we designed the two systems around that. And yeah, there will be some pressure loss through each of the systems. So that may require, and I think if you read in the report, we kind of touched on this a little bit, that there might be the need to either upgrade some of the well pumps to give us a little more head so we can pass through both the new system and the existing plant, or we may have to put like a small booster pump in the new building to kind of boost the pressure a little bit to kind of go through the plant.
Yes.
But I know that each of the well pumps have VFDs, which allow you to increase the speed. So once we get into the design of whatever we decide, each one has the same issue. So it's not something that we were saying one has advantage over the other. They both have the same issue. So during the design, we'll have to look and see if there's enough flexibility in the VFDs to use the pumps, increase the speed, and get the pressure we need, or we may have to change out one or two of the pumps.
Peter, I'm going to jump in here.
Sure.
Can you clarify whether or not we will, regardless of which system we go with, will this put a stop to the loss of water that we are experiencing now, trying to keep that concentration within a public health concentration?
Are you talking in regards to the TTHMs?
Yes.
Yes. So both systems will remove more than 60% of the TOCs, and based on that level of TOC that's going to be in the raw water, based on what we saw from the lab test, that should keep the THM formation below the 80 ppb, which is the MCL for that.
So they will be able to stop releasing water into the ground. Isn't that part of
the idea is to terminate the temporary flushing that we're doing.
Oh, the flushing.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, that was.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I misunderstood. Yes.
So that would put a stop to. Okay, great.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Right now we're doing that just as a short-term measure to keep the water safe.
And DEP is looking for a more permanent solution.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why we're here. DEP would like us to stop just flushing hydrants,
Right.
or not flushing hydrants.
That would put, and that would do it. Either whatever system we go with, that would do it.
Both of those address it. So Tim, what is your opinion of obviously these two systems? Where do you sit on this? On comfortable of having that redundancy and being able to operate the system and being able to control sort of future operating costs?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're looking at the two costs, they're pretty similar. I did talk with Dave Dolan, got him and Brian, the secondary operator. I got their opinion. And we kind of worked with Peter as a group And we think, you know, we've been down, I hate to say, but we've been down the road with a kind of a proprietary plant. Over the last couple of years, we did those upgrades, and it was very, very challenging to work with a company that wasn't from here. They're in California. It's not a proven technology, you know, or a technology that Mass DEP is very familiar with the Filtronics. And, you know, looking at the costs, looking at the headaches that project was, the GAC is definitely something that Mass DEP is well versed in, and has a lot of experience. That's actually what they're recommending for a lot of towns that have high PFAS testing results. But it also, you know, takes out the organics as well. So I'd like to start, you know, moving forward with this plan. It's been a challenge since I've been here. I think we've done very good work there to bring the water to, you know, back to a good quality. You know, we've taken away a lot of the discoloration calls that we were getting. The testing results are very favorable since over the last couple of years that we've been here. This is just something that I feel that we eventually will need to do, either one of these for a more permanent solution. And also it's probably a good, you know, probably something to plan for the future. I do think the PFAS is the next, I mean, there will be another. So I think if we can put in a technology that's proven, that DEP is comfortable with, but also can take us through the future until we, you know, come up with a large, you know, long-term plan, you know, however many years that's down the road, this will take us to that point. I do like that there's minimal responsibility for our staff. Once you set the filters there and get them conditioned, it's pretty much just less maintenance, little to no maintenance, I guess. You know, I'm not putting in something that's going to take a lot of work to make it function. So I do like that. And like I said, the costs are fairly comparable. There is a little bit more higher operating costs than one and the other, but I think it's worth that to get a system that is, you know, that can handle many more than just TOCs, many more things than just TOCs.
Mm.
Yeah, thanks, Tim.
Mm.
Is this going to require a vote tonight?
Yeah, so let me explain where we're at. So we had Peter on. He helped us with this more of a feasibility, more of a preliminary design look, trying to go through our water, our testing results, and developing these two alternatives. So we're kind of right now on a holding pattern. We've got to this point, and what we're looking at is moving forward, hopefully with one of these two options. Like I said, we did get money from town meeting. Our plan is to hopefully get a recommendation, one or the other, from the Board of Selectmen, and then develop a new proposal, you know, to do the design work, bid out the project, and depending on what the, you know, costs are, go back to a future town meeting for the difference in the cost to get this maybe even done, you know, over the winter months is ideal, but we can do it during the season just because it's little to no issues with the current operation of the plant. We can kind of build it aside or while the plant's running. So what we're looking at is trying to plan to try to do this in a time that's the least impact. Hopefully, you know, as we get that down that path, we do hit that time frame.
Tim, do you have an estimate on the lifetime of the plant if we go with a GAC? Is there a lifespan that it has, or is this something that we can continue to upgrade and keep for a long time?
Yeah, I would say it's not the plant, it's more of the wells.
Okay.
They are older. They are producing, you know, enough and meeting our demand. They are taking, you know, more frequent maintenance and redevelopment of the wells. So we are treating them. Maybe something that has been neglected for a bit of time, but we are creating a treatment or a maintenance schedule for those wells to keep them as operable and optimum as possible. So I would say that the plant is functioning very well. The Filtronics work that we did has greatly reduced our manganese and iron levels. And now this is something we need to take care of as well, the TOCs. So I would say more of the wells just need to have some more.
So Tim, does this buy us time in terms of a new well, or do we still, is that still, you have to be a concurrent, you're gonna be able to use idle
Yeah, so
wood
that's a
well
good
number
point.
2 with this plant, or do we still need to start looking for a parallel well?
Yeah, that's a good point, and I didn't touch on that. So my thought is, if we do go with either one of these two systems, Idlewood 2 has a very good low quality or low quantity, or I guess a very low concentration of iron and manganese. It does have high TOCs. So my thought is that if we do go with either one of these two options, we would be able to handle the present Idlewood 2 and not have to drill a new well to replace that. So yes, I think we could turn that on and be able to treat it effectively. We did use Idlewood 2, the one that is current. We did use that in the raw water sampling. So the test results did include that amount of TOCs.
Right, yeah, we took a sample from the worst case, so we can make sure that whatever we use was gonna treat, the worst wells when they're used.
So I think that Tim is looking for a vote from the board to give him a direction, which of these two options you'd like to see him pursue over the next couple of months, so that we're ready if we need to make a subsequent request to enhance the 1.5 million that was authorized at last year's annual town meeting. This preliminary design and these two estimates tell us we might need a little bit more than that. So if the board is of a mind to make a vote tonight, that would be helpful.
I'll make a motion that the board accepts the GAC absorption system as described.
I second that.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, I have, it's Rosie. I have just a couple of questions. So there are only two systems here, and I'm wondering, did you look at other systems, or are there other systems available out there? Or what? I mean, it looks like the GAC system is certainly a much better choice for us than the MIAX. But my question is, were there other systems out there that you looked at as well?
Yes, I was, yeah, so if you, in the report, I'm so you're gonna get that, it was like 40 pages, but we evaluated at least 6 other treatment alternatives, either to remove TOCs or THMs. I just gave a summary of what we actually came at the end, at that evaluation. These two came out as the most favorable, but we did look at putting in aeration in the clear well, changing chlorine to chloramines after the clear well. We looked at GAC in the back of downstream of the plant to take out THMs after they form. So we looked at a whole list of options that we could apply it to the plant. And these are the two that came out based on the evaluation as the most favorable to achieve the goal that we're trying to achieve down there. So when you see the report, it kind of gives you a whole
Right. And I'll
evaluation
have
of
that
all this.
report available. The last conclusion paragraph was kind of based upon what we decided tonight. So
Yeah, I think we actually did share it with the board, but it was back in February. I mean, we've been talking about this at that time. I know we had got a copy of the draft report, and I shared it as a draft at that time, but we weren't ready to talk about it. We're a little beyond that, and obviously lots happened since February. So I can certainly understand where the board may have dropped off our radar over the last couple months, but the report's out there. We'll make sure you get another copy of it.
Perfect. Okay. Well, the GAC certainly sounds like it would meet a lot of our needs.
Be the best investment.
Okay, any further discussion? All right, all those in favor, Darcy,
Darcy Dale, aye.
Bill,
William Olson, aye.
Sean,
Don Farrell, aye.
Rosemary,
Rosemary Kennedy, aye.
and Jeff Hubbard, aye. All
And,
right, great, thank you very much.
and Jeff, if I may, just one more question while Peter and Tim are still here. What's kind of our estimated timeline for kind of finishing up this now that we've got a forward motion on this and then some kind of buildable documents and stuff like that, how much time are we looking at, you think?
Yeah, so I'll talk with Marissa when I get back. I just want to go over the funding strategies with the money that's been appropriated. I don't remember off the top of my head, and unless she's on, I don't have her on my screen. But talking with that with her briefly about that, and then what I'm looking at is I need to extend the current contract or have Peter provide a new proposal for the additional work to start the design. Peter, I'm not sure if you've thought about that or not on a time frame.
Timing? I would think that an achievable time would probably be to get the design wrapped up and maybe even the winter and maybe bid like late winter, early spring, and then maybe start construction next spring.
Okay.
If depending on how the funding comes into
Right.
place, and DEP doesn't come back and say, oh, before you. I mean, my feeling is that Mass DEP won't have too much to say about GAC because they seem to want us to go that direction anyway. So, in light of them not asking us to do something that I'm not aware of, I believe that having plans ready for like a late winter, early spring bid and working in the spring would probably be a doable schedule.
Right, and we've been in upfront with Mass DEP and what our process was. They are just looking for us to keep in contact with them regarding the next steps. They haven't given us any deadlines or any type of by this date we have to have something in place. It's more of just keeping in contact with them. And then as we get a little further, giving them periodic updates, things like that. So,
and are we still within our allocated monies? Do we have to change any language or anything for this? It's still pre-treatment, but it's a little bit different. I know we changed our allocation.
I don't think so. I mean, it's just an alternative. We were looking at different pre-treatment systems prior to.
We're well within what we voted.
Yeah, it's always a pre-treatment.
It was always a pre-treatment option, yeah. And the issue is going to be that it's a little bit more money than we had initially estimated. So unfortunately, that sometimes happens as you develop a plan through, you get a little bit more certainty.
But Tim, before we jump off this, I just want to ask you too as well. So we've all been home now for 7 days a week, 3 meals a day, living and we have no precipitation in the air. So how are we doing with our water systems right now? What are we looking forward to this summer for water and water bans, things like that? What do you forecast for us?
Yeah, we have our seasonal ban that started May 1st through September 30th. I've talked to the two operators at the plant. They do say demand has been up. People at home probably getting gardens ready and outdoor work, and everybody's lawn's probably green and lush and trying to find things to do outside. I get it. But I do think we will need rain. If we don't get rain, we're probably going to probably go in front of the BOS to enact another restriction. Right now it is no mechanical sprinklers or sprinkler systems between the hours of 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. So if they have the use of them, it's usually at night, which is the lowest demand on our system. But I did talk with Dave recently, and he did say that the plant we used to get shutdowns periodically through the day, and especially at night. And I believe the last couple of days, it's been 3 days at least of straight runtime. So the plant's not being able to push out enough water to bring our tank level up far enough for the plant to shut down. So we're pushing the water around and it's being used before it can get to the tank to adequately fill it. So that's something that I will monitor or talk with him daily about. And if it's a continuing problem, our wells seem to be functioning fine. We're not increasing them. We're not needing to yet because we don't want to tax them too much. But if the need is there, that's the first thing we will do. We'll kind of increase the demand from the wells, see how the plant acts. But we do have a seasonal ban, which I have pushed out a couple different pieces of information on. But if we're not getting any precipitation, you know, in the next couple of weeks, we might be, you know, come July, we may be in a point that we have to go to the next step on restriction.
Great, okay. All right, well, thank you very much, Tim and Peter. Appreciate it very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Peter.
Okay, have a good night.
Good night.
Thanks.
Tim, back on to you about an update on the Hamilton Cemetery.
Yes, obviously it's a precious piece of Hamilton. It's definitely sustained some damage with direct sunlight, lack of water, lack of irrigation, lack of precipitation when we treat for grubs. A lot of different factors go into it. And I do have Pete Cobb on, I believe. Yep, there he is. So he has talked with our cemetery foreman, develop a plan to move forward. But we do understand it is definitely a piece of Hamilton that you know, that needs some work, that needs some assistance and help. And I think we have a good plan moving forward. Even this time of year, I think we can treat for those grubs and plan for a fall, maybe a fall larger project, or maybe even in-house. So Pete, if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, so everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
So what we're looking to do is we're looking to do some kind of a chemical treatment. We've talked to Save a Tree out of Danvers. They're going to use Celeprene, I believe it is. They'll come in as soon as possible, probably within the next couple of weeks or the beginning of July. They'll treat all the affected areas with like a 10 to 20 foot overlay of that. From there, we'll start planting probably late summer, early spring with our own guys. As for right now, we'll probably start on the front, work our way back, get as much done as possible, and pick up next year. We need to keep going with the treatment though. That's the big thing. We've been using milky spores in the past, and it's a good organic product, but it's just not doing the job that we need right now.
Right. And I think Pete got a price. I think it's a relatively inexpensive treatment price. I think it was around $1,300.
Yeah, just under $1,500.
Yep. Yep. So it's something that we will probably have to do annually from this.
That $1,300. Will that $1,300 cover just the front part of the cemetery that people see when they drive by, or will it cover the whole cemetery?
That's the whole cemetery.
Wow, that's
all. Yeah, we're just doing the affected areas. We don't want to put the chemical on the areas that aren't inundated with the grubs. We're going to try to use a less harsh chemical. Future. We'll probably go with this chemical for a few years and then go to more something like a Grub-X or something.
Yeah.
That will hopefully be
Great.
a little more giving on the insects that we don't want to affect.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you. Did anybody have any more questions? Okay. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate you being here tonight.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Tim.
All right. We'll see everybody Wednesday.
Bye.
Enjoy Block Island.
All right. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
And my apologies to Sean Timmons. Sean, we skipped over you somehow, some way. So if you could give us an update on the recreation and pool programs for the summer.
Yeah, sure thing. Not a problem. I love this stuff. Come on. So I think Joe has a PowerPoint to put up on the screen, then I can kind of go through it real quickly. You guys got a lot going on. So really just kind of focusing this conversation to the pool. Obviously the pool and the restrictions that are in place now, you know, there is a financial impact that I just want to kind of talk to everybody about, you know, before going ahead and moving forward with you know, with any operations. If we, you know, if the choice is to go ahead and open the pool this summer. Thanks, Joe. You can just skip to the first one, Joe. So just to kind of give everyone a quick update or a quick background of what we've done in our office to date, essentially since pretty much since March and April. We've been meeting daily, obviously in our office, talking about pool operations with our staff. We have a really great Massachusetts Rec and Park Association, and we've been meeting weekly, with three different groups. So an aquatics group, a camp group, and a directors group, regional directors group. So really getting a lot of good information and a lot of good policies and procedures moving forward from those meetings. And of course, we've tried to keep up to date with the American Red Cross has done a great job. The CDC has offered aquatic webinars. We've even been on Zoom conferences with the North Texas Aquatic Association. So we've really been trying to do our homework to kind of gauge what pool operations might look like this summer. And of course, 4 days ago, the state issued their guidance for swimming pool operations. So I can kind of go through, what the state guidance would mean for our pool, in a number of different aspects. So you can go to the next slide, Joe. Thank you. So essentially what we'd be looking at for our pool operations, or what we're proposing, is our dates of operation would be July 11th to August 23rd. So we'd be open for 6 weeks in the summer. What we try to do, we normally, if in a normal summer, the cover would be off right now, and we'd be opening in 10 days. But because we didn't know what was going to be the guidance, if pools were even going to be a part of the plan to open, we did push off our pool opening, or our scheduled pool opening, to the middle of June. So based upon opening in the middle of June, trying to make sure that we keep an eye on finances for this particular fiscal year, I felt it was best to open the pool somewhere around July 11th. So July 11th would be a moving target for us if we were to go forward. But that would be just about the starting date that we think we could get everyone in, everyone trained, the site, how it needs to be in order to operate. So what the state guidance has told us is that swimming pools can operate at 40% of maximum capacity. So it was a little bit higher than I actually thought it was going to be. So it's 40% of maximum capacity, but that also includes our staff. So for us, that would put us at about 30 patrons or 30 guests and 5 staff at a time. So 35 people can be socially distant inside and outside the water in our deck area. And how we would plan to operate the pool is we would create 4 daily blocks of time, hour-and-a-half blocks of time, where people would pre-register for. So of course, if we can only have 30 folks in the pool at once, we don't want 80 folks coming at the same time on a 100-degree day and then being backed up. So we'd have to go to, what a lot of the beaches are doing, or a lot of different other places are doing, where we'd have to go to that reservation time. It would be open swim only. Our swim league actually was canceled last week. Swim lessons are not part of the phase 2 opening, so we would not be offering swim lessons. And because of financial considerations, we probably wouldn't want to offer lap swim. With lap swim, you're only limited to 6 or 7 people in the pool at a time. So, from a financial standpoint, doesn't make a whole lot of sense to limit yourself when we're already limited, to even limit ourselves even further. Go to the next one, Joe. Thanks. So like I said, we'd be making reservations made in advance. We would not have any memberships. We would not allow any drop-ins. Folks would need to register for a specific time block and then show up during that time block. One of the things we need to do is we need to create designated seating areas on the deck. Those would be marked off and socially distant. One of the really tough things that the guidance has put forward is that the only folks that can sit near each other are from the same household. So whereas the beach, you just can be in a group of 9, and then the next group can be 12 feet next to you. Here, they're very specific that the only folks that can stay in kind of that designated seating areas need to be from the same household. So that goes into the reservation, the previous reservations. Or individuals, right? So we would allow individuals. One of the things that we probably wouldn't be allowed to do this summer is allow a group of 13, 14, 15-year-old kids show up to the pool together, because then it would be hard when they get on the deck, they're not in the same household. So that does have a financial impact on us because we do really well when our camp ends for, kids coming on their bikes and young teens being able to hang out at the pool. But unfortunately this year, based on the guidelines that we have now, those types of things, are really cannot happen. Guidelines also want us to have a social distance coordinator. So we would actually have a staff member who is not a lifeguard, who would be on the deck, and they would be making sure that folks were using the bathroom correctly, making sure that folks, were in the deck area correctly, and even in some cases the water. So we were a little surprised when the state did say that social distancing has to take place in the water as well. So we didn't think that was going to come from the state. So that was a little surprising. But folks who aren't in the same household do need to be 6 feet apart from each other, even in the water. All of our staff and our patrons have to wear masks, except when they're actually in the water. Our changing rooms can be closed. And I did find out from our health inspector today that we will not need to, if we do operate, we will not need to open up the indoor showers. They can just use the one outdoor shower that we have there. So that was a nice surprise. So just to really quickly go through the financials and how I came to my to my estimates. So I based the revenue on 66% full capacity over the course of the summer. So of course, if we had bad weather, if not all the spots are reserved, if we have unexpected closures, again, the type of operation that we have to run really lends to families. And if we open at 11:30, is that really the best time for families to come as a family unit? So maybe our numbers might be a little bit lower during the weekday daytimes. So didn't want to, so I think through all that, we were looking at about a 66% capacity rate for the entire summer. For our expenses, when we estimated our staff expense, we did 90%. And again, that's bad weather, unexpected absences, unexpected closures. And in our staff expenses, we also included our preseason training. So when you look, I based it out on weeks. But we did have to include for the staff the preseason training. Also in the financials, I have $0 allocated to new uniforms. So all of our staff would use uniforms that they've gotten in the past or extra uniforms that we have now. We would have a decrease in program supplies due to only being open for open swim. So our swim lesson supplies and supplies that we, our toys, things of that nature aren't really part of this phase 2. So we wouldn't be purchasing them. We'd actually have a decrease in chemical cost. The less patrons we have in the pool, the less chlorine gets used. So we'd have a decrease in that cost. Our opening and closing. So we have an opening and closing for both the pool and our bathhouse. So I base that on a 6-week operation season. And our utilities. So when we turn the electricity on and the motor starts going, the filter starts going, it takes 3 or 4 weeks to clean the pool for it to get ready. And then on the back end for us to shut it down. So our utilities are based on an 11-week season. So through all that, we're predicting or estimating somewhere in the ballpark of the pool operations costing us about $7,000 a week. So this is all based on a 6-week estimate. So we're estimating at about $7,000 a week. And if you go to the next slide, so this is what that looks like when we take into account how much money we're actually charging people to use the pool. So if we charge folks $6 a drop-in, and we're predicting the 66% participation capacity, the pool itself would lose about $3,500 a week. And then you can go down the line with the different the price points and the different kind of financial implications that has. And again, those financial implications are done on a weekly, 6-week basis. If we spread it out to a 7-week, the pool might not lose as much per week, but over the course of the 7 weeks, it might lose just as much or more. So it is a little confusing to look at it. But certainly, there's some financial implications here. And when you're only operating at 40%, and you're eliminating swim lessons, our swim team, our camp swim, all that revenue certainly does take its toll. And when we're only operating as a strictly reservation-based operation, there are some financial implications there.
Tim, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
On a reservation basis, are you going to be taking reservations over the telephone using a credit card? Because I know that drop-ins normally pay cash and they bring it over to the treasurer's office at the end of the day. So how is that going to work? What are the mechanics like?
So we have a registration software that we would set up. Each individual time would be a program. So Saturday at 11:30 would be a quote unquote program that you could register for. And we only allow 20 or 30 participants to register for that program. So you would arrive to the pool with your receipt,
Okay.
printed out, and our gate staff would know exactly who registered for that specific time. They would just show the receipt, and then our gate staff would let them in. And then that really helps us with the household, because we could ask for IDs and things of that nature. And that's a tricky part also when we're talking about younger kids using the pool, is they don't really have forms of identification. So it's hard to know, if they're in the same household.
Yeah.
But yeah, we have that all set up in our software.
Okay. So they will be using credit cards.
Yeah, or they could stop by our office and pay in check.
Okay.
I want to be sure that we wanted Sean to have this discussion with you, and let's note that the FinCom now has a quorum. There are 4 members on board, so at some point, if the FinCom chairman wants to call his committee to order, Sean did meet with the FinCom in Wenham last week at their request on Wednesday. That was why this was added to the agenda late. I didn't get the request to add him until Thursday. We had time to do it, so we did. We've been talking about this behind the scenes. Anthony Ansaldi and myself have been talking about this with Sean for several weeks now. Going back into early May, we were concerned about the cost of the pool, how much it cost to open it, run it. None of us knew what the rules were going to be. It didn't look good. This is not quite as bad as we predicted if we hit all of the maximum benchmarks, but that's a big if. And Anthony and I are currently planning to recommend that we don't open the pool for this summer. We have to run the pool for about 4 weeks. Correct me if I'm wrong, Sean. We have to run the pool for about 4 weeks to make sure all the mechanicals in the pool get exercised and keep us current on all our warranties and everything. There is an expense to that. I believe it's about $7,000 total, which, assuming that we're able to open next year and do our normal kind of programming where we'd be able to offer pool memberships and everything else, we'd recover that before the end of the fiscal year. So we wouldn't end, we've got a good chance of not ending FY21 in a deficit if we do that. But to me, a revolving fund willingly opening and operating at a projected $3,500 to down to $200, depending which rate you choose, willingly operating at a deficit every week is not a good approach, and it's not something we should be endorsing. We want the Board of Selectmen and the FinCom to chime in on this, but Anthony and I are prepared to say, and I don't like to speak for Anthony, but I know he told me that he's leaning towards recommending that we don't open, and I certainly am leaning that way. I don't think that it makes financial sense for us.
I mean, Sean, did it break even last year, or did it lose money last year?
We're up. Lucky is, I don't know if that's the right word to use, but so we've done fairly well financially over the past 3 years when we've operated the pool. And when we talk, and I just want to be clear, when we talk about these deficits, those deficits are spread out over this fiscal year and next fiscal year. So if we do not open the pool this summer, even if we do open the pool this summer, I would suspect that we're going to end this fiscal year in a little bit of a deficit in the revolving fund. Because remember, and I know I have this conversation with everyone all the time about revolving funds. Last July and August, we were running the pool full tilt, and with the thought, obviously, that we were going to be able to generate just as much revenue this summer, at the beginning of the summer, that we did in previous summers. So right now we have generated $5,000 in revenue, which we would have to refund if we weren't opening the pool. And then normally at this time, we'd be somewhere in the $60,000 to $70,000 of revenue generation. So, you're all revolving funds, you're always chasing it, especially recreation revolving funds, because you're expending the most amount of money at the very beginning of the fiscal year. So just when we talk about these deficits, I just want to, in all transparency, just let everyone know that the deficits do spread out over 2 fiscal years. It's just how, the summer just happens to fall in the ends of the fiscal year. So, it's not great timing when it comes to recreation revolving funds or
I mean,
pool
right.
revolving
If you open
funds.
the pool up and you charge $10 a drop in rate, you lose over 6 weeks. You lose somewhere around $8,000, quote unquote. But even if you close the pool, you'd still spend $6,000 or $7,000 to run it for 3 weeks. So I
So
don't know.
if we close the pool, if we didn't open the pool, it would probably be somewhere between like $4,000 and $5,000 that we would expend all in fiscal year 21. So we wouldn't incur any more expenses in fiscal year 20. We'd incur them in fiscal year 21 and then try to make it up the next following. So if you see, if we refund all the money to the folks that have registered, we're going to end this fiscal year with a negative balance of about $800, which is going to have to be subsidized by the towns. If we do run the pool, I can't make any guarantees that 800 number might be lower. It could be higher. It's just so hard to tell because we're not really sure, when people pay. Do folks really want to, if we open July 10th, do folks really want to pay 3 weeks in advance for a reservation when they don't know what the weather might be? So it's really, really tricky to kind of maneuver that. But we do know that if we choose to open, we are going to have to spend money in fiscal year 20 to get the pool up and running, because if we don't, then we wouldn't open until August.
Right.
So
Did you look at a different type of membership type structure that could get money to you sooner and with more guarantee?
Well, the only other option that we could do is we could offer memberships and then give folks, kind of first crack at the times that they would want. So that's another option that we could look at. But it's hard to tell. It's just hard to tell if that's something that we could get enough revenue in a short amount of time.
I just think it's important to get the pool open this summer if we could do it safely. But I don't necessarily know it was ever supposed to be a money maker. I mean, it was always a service the town was providing, but we're trying to break even. But I don't know. In my opinion, is that we should.
You're correct. I mean, what we are trying to break even.
Right.
We're just $60,000 less than we would be in a normal summer. So it's hard to break even when that's, when those things are happening. But you're correct. I mean, the pool's not we're not overcharging people, to use the pool. We're certainly, I think in the past couple fiscal years, we've been $3,000 or $5,000 in the black, which is really, really you want to be. It means you're setting a good price point. You're offering good programming. People are attending. It's just with everything that's going on, it's just so hard to tell, from a financial standpoint.
Sean, let me interrupt if I may. This is Dave Wanger, and following Joe's suggestion, I'd like to call the Hamilton Finance and Advisory Committee to order, 7:42 on June 8, 2020. Valerie McCormick.
Here.
John Prulidge.
John Prulidge here.
Nick Tenson. I think Nick was pictured in his car, but I don't know if he's connected. And David Wanger here. So minimally, we have a quorum. Thank you.
Joe,
can you stop sharing the screen so we can at least see each other in this conversation? That'd be good. Thank you.
Yeah, so, Sean, the kind of, we've talked a handful of times over the last month here about this, and I've kind of gone back and forth. In the beginning, I was all gung ho to have it open, but the more and more we get along, the more and more of a deficit I think it's going to be in a short season. And my question to you is that carrying costs we talked about that could be, $3,000 to $7,000 to kind of, I'm going to call it open the pool, but we'll run it for maintenance purposes. Is that cost the same if we open the pool is that spread out over those numbers that you gave us for the deficit that we would have over those weeks that we run it? Is that included in that cost, or is that just the loss from staff and?
No,
Yeah.
that's the opening and the closing is included in that cost. Correct.
Does
Sean,
FinCom have anything to say?
pardon me. Go ahead, Darcy.
No, I was going to say, does FinCom have anything to say about the dilemma?
Well, I wanted to ask Sean, the deficit would be shared between the towns?
Well, that's a good question, David. That's, the $1 million question is we're a joint venture here. So we're dependent on Wenham to buy in or not buy in, depending which way we go or which way they go. I'm not sure how our IMA works with this type of situation. Joe, do you know?
Joe, can you give any guidance?
To be honest, I actually haven't reviewed the IMA for the pool operation. I don't think any of us anticipated this kind of situation. And we have, although we've been talking about it, we've been trying to stay on the same page with it. So well, we'd have to look at, I would assume, to be honest with you, though, if one of us decides not to do it, it'll make it really hard for the other one to push them forward. So
right.
Almost regardless of what the IMA says on the matter, and the IMA may not have anything on the matter because I'm not sure that it considered the potential of a no season. It's definitely something we'd have to agree to do together.
Yeah, and Sean, I'm just kind of assuming that the number that you gave us for those different deficit scenarios, that's with both towns, or that's just the Hamilton share?
No, that's with both towns. So I can answer the question. So I believe the IMA reads that if you finish the year, just like any revolving fund, if you finish the year in a deficit in a revolving fund, the towns do need to subsidize that, and the IMA for the pool would be, I would imagine, I'd have to double check, but I'm almost 100% positive that it would be shared between the two towns. So, again, from an operational standpoint, we can absolutely do it. I've no question about it. We can do it from an operational standpoint. What I really wanted to make everyone aware of was, because of the just tricky timing, between the fiscal years, it makes it really difficult to gauge exactly what that deficit, if we do choose to open the pool, what that deficit is going to be at the end of fiscal year 20.
Right.
And what I'm saying now is if the answer, if the choice is to not open the pool, the deficit at the end of fiscal year 20 will be about $800, which will be 450 for Hamilton and 300, whatever the math is.
Whatever it is, yeah.
That I can tell you with certainty. It's going to be right around $800. What I can't tell you, because it's really difficult to kind of navigate that timing, is if we do choose to open, and we open the bathhouse and we open the pool and we have our staff training and we do that all in fiscal year 20, what is that financial impact going to be at the end of fiscal year 20?
Right. And is there any impact, and Sean and I have talked about this, and I think I've talked about it with you, Joe, is combining that revolving fund for the pool with the rec revolving fund. Does that solve any of this deficit issue for us? I mean, in the future it does, but would it help out for this year if we did it at STM? Would that affect anything, or is that too far beyond our?
So, addressing the issue with the rec having two revolving funds basically being run by the same department was something that we had talked about trying to bring up at the annual town meeting next year. We were going to try to review with the two FinComs the efficacy of either trying to combine the two of them into an enterprise fund or just combine them into one larger rec fund, revolving fund. My understanding was that originally they were done separately because there were people in the two communities that wanted to see that the pool could, as you said earlier, kind of carry its own weight at least. I think the last 2 to 3 fiscal years have shown that we've ended. My understanding is you've ended each fiscal year with a little bit of a balance because you're taking in money at the end of a fiscal year that'll be spent over the summer. So you've been able to keep it balanced and not end any year till now in the deficit. So that's a good time. That's a good sign. The pool is carrying its own weight, but it's also doing it partly because it's been serving the park program. That's not going to happen this year. A big part of the revenue that you got into the pool was taking a piece of the park program money and dedicating it to the pool because the kids were using the pool every day as part of that park, that rec park program. So without it, that revenue would, even if you could operate the pool regularly, you would be in danger of operating at a deficit. Like I said, I'm very concerned that willingly deciding to go forward with opening a pool that we know doesn't have a chance to make back its revenue.
Right.
Even Sean's, highest number of drop-in rate
It's still a deficit.
is still a deficit, and that's if you get 60% usage at the 40% capacity. I mean,
Right, we
that's,
just don't know.
you don't know. You'll get days. There'll be hot days where people will want to come down, and you'll fill up all the reservation slots. But even in good summers, we have other times of the day that just don't get filled up.
Right.
Joe-
And who
Joe,
knows what
who's
the
this-
weather's going to bring
Joe-
too. I mean, if we
Right.
have a rainy summer.
I'm sorry, whose decision is it?
David, quite frankly, honestly, I read it in it's an operational issue. It's the town, a meeting will approve a revolving fund and allowing to spend up to a certain amount in the revolving fund, but it's an operational decision. As far as I'm concerned in Hamilton, it's probably my decision. But I'm looking for us to all understand the environment here together and kind of come to some consensus on it.
I mean, it's a
And that would
15.
be- I'm sorry, that would be so in Wenham also?
It would probably be the Board of Selectmen's decision to win them.
They have a TA.
Right.
What is the balance of the rec revolving fund? Is that positive?
Right now, it's positive, but we have some refunds to give. So by the time we give the refunds, Sean said that we'll end FY20 right now at about $800 in the red for the first time in a while. So, I mean, that's a manageable deficit. It's certainly not Sean's fault or the pool's fault. It's, the circumstances we find ourselves in. But I'm worried about growing that into the next year.
I mean, the recreation revolving fund.
Yeah.
not-
Oh, no,
So,
that's
yeah, I
several
can
$100,000. That's a couple
Yeah, I can answer
$100,000 in the black.
Yeah, so
And
we've the recreation revolving fund, I mean, is probably, I'd have to go back and look because the recreation revolving fund, and really thank God that we had a decent balance in there, because the recreation revolving fund for this fiscal year, because we're not recouping the camp money, is probably going to end in a deficit for just this fiscal year of over $100,000. So we do have the capacity to kind of to eat that, but what we do not have the capacity to do that in the pool revolving fund, simply because it hasn't been operating for as long, and the revenue was more closely tied to the expenses.
Yeah, I want to clarify what Sean said. The recreation revolving fund will not end in a deficit, but its operations did not support what they spent this year. You had a substantial amount of money already in the fund that will carry the loss. You won't end the current fiscal year in a deficit in a revolving fund, but you did not take in as much money as you expended because of the situation of having to cancel programs. But the fund itself will not end in a deficit. I want to be real clear about the language we use in that.
Right, and that's why we're
Also ask
considering.
If Anthony and Saldi and Wenham, they're definitely not going to be funding this. Is that what you were saying at the beginning of this discussion? I think
Anthony and I have talked a lot about it. He is recommending to his Board of Selectmen that they don't support opening the pool.
So
But it's the Board of Selectmen's, and Wenham, it's going to be the Board of Selectmen's decision.
So it's kind of a moot point that if they're going to say no, then should we make a motion?
Well, before you do that, Darcy, I guess I have a question. Is there a way, since the recreation revolving fund has a pretty significant, we're in the black significantly, isn't there a way that we could use funds from the recreation revolving fund to make up this deficit in the pool?
No,
Mercer's already shaking her head. No, revolving funds require that you use the funds raised in them only for the things that they were raised for. So the town meeting can't even act on that. So
yeah, and that's why we're trying to combine the two funds, Jeff. If we had the two funds combined, we wouldn't have this deficit. It wouldn't be this big of a conversation because the pool would be in that rec revolving fund, and we could absorb that 20,000 or whatever into that revolving fund and run the pool. And the issue kind of is because we have two separate funds and we run so close on the pool revolving fund that when we have the deficit, then we have this bigger issue.
But big
So
picture,
Sean,
If I may,
the recreation department is in the black by a significant amount. It just seems to me that given where we are in the world and the desperate need for people to get out and exercise, especially the kids in town, in addition to that, the importance of hiring and employing people, if the recreation department as a whole, big picture, I understand these two different funds we're talking about are differences, but as the recreation department as a whole has the resources to do it, I feel pretty strongly that we should open the pool and would hope to be able to do it by July 4th.
So I mean, I agree with you, Jeff. So John, let me ask you 3 questions. One is, have you thought about a poll, right? You do a good job with your polls, right? So it'd be good to see what the community's thinking about doing this, how quickly that, so I don't know if you thought about doing a poll in terms
No,
of what would
so-
they
yeah,
pay,
so-
$6,
so-
$10, $12?
Yeah, so I haven't done a specific poll about price, but I certainly could try to do that this week if that's kind of where we want to head.
And then if you said you're open for as the worst case scenario, open for 6 weeks, you lose $7,000 a week. Hamilton pays it all. You're talking it's this $42,000 deficit, right? That's what we're talking about. Worst case. Now, I know it's not over the fiscal year, but that's the dollars we're talking, right? And you
So
need
that would be, yeah, you know, it's one of those things. It's tough to find the price point where someone's going to be willing to swim for an hour and a half and to be able to get that to, you know, where we're at, you know, for that capacity. It's kind of tough to figure, but you know, I
probably
certainly
10. It's
could
probably
do-
$10, but you know, if there's
I
any
would
memberships,
probably,
probably
you know,
$10.
if we
but-
were, yeah, 10 would probably be where my price
And then
point
you need a no-go. You need a no-go by next Monday is what you're telling us, basically by the 15th, right? Your no-go, your no-go.
So I would need to know by Friday because we have the pool company coming in to take the cover off on next Tuesday as of right now. So they need to know. And remember, once the pool cover comes off, it's a good 4 to 5 weeks before we can get people in the pool. I mean, you know, running the pool when it's just a seasonal pool, there's a lot that goes into it because the pool is just not constantly running. So, you know, when we open it up, we need to make sure that we're set to go. And remember, we haven't purchased anything because we didn't know if pools were even going to be able to open this summer. So we are.
But you have to open it up anyways. Even if we're not opening the pool, you still gotta go through your paces. So even if you didn't find out Friday, you wouldn't have to cancel the pool company because they still got to come and take the cover off and clean the
because
pool.
I would cancel the pool company because I wouldn't want to spend any more money this fiscal year.
I thought you said you had to run the pool though for 3 weeks this year.
So
Yeah,
we
we're
would
trying
run
to
it.
do it
We
after
would
next
run it.
year.
In, I would open it in July.
Oh,
Year 21.
So I would if the decision was that, you know, the pool was to close, I would not spend, you know, from a financial standpoint, I wouldn't spend any more money this fiscal year. I would then open the pool next fiscal year. So
Gotcha.
the what the towns would have to subsidize would be lower, and then we would increase our price. Either way, we're going to have to increase our pricing next year anyways to make up for that loss. It's just, you know, a matter of when in the fiscal year we're actually spending the money.
And Marissa was going to chime in, and I wanted to know what she had to say.
thank you, Darcy. Just a couple of concerns that I wanted to bring out. As far as making the decision, as far as running the pool in a deficit, I would like to run that by the division of DOR because I don't know how they will feel about that. I mean, these are the types of funds that are supposed to be to break even. The revenues need to cover what we estimate in expenditures. So in my opinion, I think in their eyes, what they're going to say is if you do want to open it, then your price needs to match your revenues. We can't, I mean, I'm not going to say we can't. We're obviously in a different situation now, and we would probably have to reach out to them. But normally this is, let's call it a self-sufficient fund. The revenues should cover your expenditures. And it seems like we're trying to make a decision by saying, yeah, it's fine as long as it's like a deficit of 2,000 or 3,000, you know, and I'm not really sure if DOR is going to have the same opinion on that. And then I was going to mention about the recreation and the pool revolving funds. I think that, you know, to Jeff's point, this is one of the reasons why Sean has been talking about for quite some time about combining the two funds. Initially, my understanding was that when the pool opened, that the town wanted to have a separate revolving fund. Personally, I think that some of the money that was in the rec revolving fund should have been allocated to the pool, but it wasn't. And it would make things easier if it was one fund. But as of right now, we have been down this road because in the past we did have a situation in which we thought, okay, well, the recreation revolving fund has the funds to cover, and we were told we could not do it. So I just wanted to bring up those 2 points. And I mean, I can try to reach out to DOR and see what their opinion is. I don't feel too comfortable telling them that I want to, to be honest with you. And, but I can try to reach out on, I don't know whether I would response by Friday or not. I mean, their response time has been a little slower since I think I'm not even sure if they're in the office yet, but.
I hate to come across as hard-headed, but I mean, I do, it's my strong recommendation that if we're forecasting a deficit in a revolving fund, that we don't open the pool.
Yeah, I think.
And I'm just going to be straight with that. That is the only concern that we have. It's a revolving fund. If it can't cover its costs, then we shouldn't open.
Yeah, but I have a hard time, big picture, like I said, if at the end of the year, the recreation department has $100,000 in the black, even though it's in a different fund, that's a technicality to the general public.
It really isn't, Jeff. I'm sorry.
But to the general public, it is though. The general public doesn't care
no,
about,
I understand
right.
that.
It's the optics of the citizens are paying all this money and we don't have the use of a pool for their kids. That's a big deal. So I understand. Yeah, you got to balance the books and all the DOR stuff, but
It's not even balancing the books. It's the law. Like if you're asking me to do that, that would be against the law. So I wouldn't feel comfortable doing it. I understand to the general public that the money is there.
Right.
And believe me, if we could do it, I would be all in favor of it. And I can try to reach out to the DOR once again and ask them if that's a possibility. I just know that in the past we have, and we were told, no, you cannot do it.
Yeah,
So,
I worry that, if
the optics of it is
for a
all.
second here, I worry that we're having this long debate for no.
Yeah.
I don't want to say no reason, but to Darcy's earlier point,
Let's move on.
if Wenham says no, and Joe's leaning towards no, Sean is either way. He'll operationally yes, but as far as revolving fund, no. I don't want to run a deficit as much as I want to say yes to Jeff's points on community and having the pool and stuff. I don't think we can feasibly do it. I know FinCom hasn't really weighed in on it, but I'm going to guess they're going to say we shouldn't run a deficit and come up against this revolving fund issue. And it's just, I think there's too many no's to open it, in my opinion. As much as I really want to say yes, it's killing me to say no, but I don't think we can do it. Especially if Wenham says no, which is, I'm sure,
Wenham's going to say no.
leaning towards saying no because of their fiscal
so.
situation and everything. I think we should say no and move on. I'll make a motion if anybody wants, but
I just want to hear what FinCom. Darcy, you asked about FinCom's opinion.
Yes.
They never spoke up. So let's hear FinCom's real quick. So we can just close the topic.
Well, I invite anyone from FinCom to comment if they wish. I would not be supportive of a deficit operation. Anyone else care to join in?
I'm concerned about that as well. I do share Bill and Jeff's sentiment that, gosh, it would really be great if we could. And I think it will definitely be lost on the public that this seems like a technicality. I don't know if is there any way that we could potentially, and this is sort of, only a halfway solution, open the pool or start the pool opening process July 1. So that, I don't know if that then somehow means that we wouldn't necessarily be running in a deficit or is it not is the only?
I mean, if you open it,
deficit?
if you open it to July 1, it wouldn't be operation until August.
Yeah.
Could I offer a halfway measure, maybe? I think that Bill had a good point. I think it's dangerous to make, the Board of Selectmen is as a decision-making body. It's a little bit dangerous to continue to just go to the voters every time and say, hey, do you want us to do this or do you want us to do that? But I can definitely understand asking the question, hey, what would your likelihood of using the pool this summer be if the pool is open for 6 weeks? Would you be more likely to use it at $10, $12, $14, whatever number? And the number that we get is going to help give us the answer, because if they're only willing to use it at $10, then I'm going to tell you that we're not going to open the pool, because we can't knowingly open the pool projecting a deficit. But if they're willing to pay $16 per person to drop in, then we can show that we're going to operate it at break even. Then I'll say, okay, let's try it.
I think that I like that, Joe, but I also I think I make it clear in what you send out to the public, all of the restrictions, because it's not only the price, it's the hour and a half slot, it's the fact that you have to be in the same household if it's more than one person. So, because you'd hate for people to say, yeah, we definitely want to do it, I'd pay $15, and then find out with all the restrictions.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to pay $15.
I can't come with my friend to the pools, and now what do I do? Right, got to come by myself.
Right, exactly.
It's going to be cost
I'm paying
prohibitive.
$15 to be by myself.
I think anything over 10 is, I don't know. I mean, I agree with the whole thing, but I think anything over 10 is going to be a no. So I think if we can't do it for $10 a visit, then
you wonder the tolerance
you're right.
of people like myself. I'm a family of 4, and if it's $10 a person, am I going to pay $40 to swim for an hour?
Why?
That's about as much. I mean, you go to the movies, it's like, I kind of look at it like that. Like, I'm not going to pay more than 10. I agree. I'm not going to pay more than 10. So if we can't do it for 10, we could, I don't know if it's even worth, I don't know, going out any further.
And just kind of anecdotally, like I mentioned, we've been talking to, all the other municipalities that run swimming pools that, are either much larger than ours or just operate differently. And it's funny because it's all relative, the size, the amount, and everyone, it's right around that $12 to $13 to $14 to $15 price point to really kind of break even. Bigger towns, we're
bigger pools.
Knock on wood, we're actually probably in a little bit better shape than some of the bigger towns when it comes to revolving and enterprise funds for the rec departments this fiscal year. But relative of the size, that's the kind of the price point that everyone's landing on.
I mean, it takes a day and it costs no money to do the pool survey, so maybe it looks better if we do it. But I agree, it's probably going to be a tough thing to do. But Joe, you said we didn't have to vote on this thing. Joe said it was your decision, Joe. So we're going to make this your decision.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Thanks.
On the hook here.
Hey, I've been here over 18 months. I guess it's time to put a target on my back. That's okay.
But do we want to then kind of kick the can down the road here, Joe, and say maybe Sean can put out a survey and see if there is a price point, and then Joe can make a decision?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, if you get overwhelming response for $12 or $14 an hour, I mean, a session, then the Joe can make it.
I'll ask Marissa to reach out to DOR quietly, not casting too big a shadow here on this, but get a subtle answer from them. I'll also continue the conversation with Anthony and see what Wyndham's thinking, because that'll be a part of it too, right? And then we'll have Sean and I will develop some kind of a poll that we can get up and run for a couple days this week to try and get some feedback and see what people think. Okay.
I think we're hearing from us, Joe, that we'd like to figure out a way to do it, but we're not going to run it at a deficit. So that's
certainly hearing that from you and Jeff, but I'm not hearing that necessarily from everybody else. I'm just going to be clear there.
No, I said that we would like to open it up, but we can't.
If we could, yeah.
If we can't run a deficit, we can't run a deficit.
I certainly don't want to be the guy that says, "Oh no, the Grinch in Hamilton didn't want to open the pool this year." I'm not trying to be Ebenezer Scrooge, but I think we have to look at it realistically. As Marissa says, this is actually a legal question. Yeah. It is against the law for us to intentionally run a revolving fund in a deficit. And I think I told all of you a long time ago, as long as I'm here, nobody's going to jail for anything that I allowed to happen. So just going to be clear on that.
And the other thing about it is, even if we do a poll, people may say they want to come, but the reality is it really is a lot of money for a family to come down for an hour. So.
Right.
And I worry about to your point too, Rosie, to add to it a little bit, I worry about the kind of other extenuating circumstances, weather, staff.
People out of jobs.
Some of that staff gets sick and then no one wants to come to work.
Yeah.
No, agreed.
It's just unfortunate, but I think I've been listening to the reality of the situation. We just really do have to look at it realistically.
All right, so I make a motion to make no motion.
All right. Discussion, everybody. Thank you.
We're kicking the can down the road.
Yeah. Good luck, Joe. Watch your tires.
All right.
I'm
Thanks,
going to start getting a rental car to drive to work.
But Sean, thank you. You did a lot of work to see what. I mean, I appreciate all the effort you put in. I mean, a lot of effort to figure out what would work. And
yeah, it's certainly a difficult time. So it's
thank you for putting all that together for us.
No, we appreciate it. All right, take care, everyone.
All right, Sean. Good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, up to the next item. Hopefully this will be more of a positive, easier discussion. Request of 15 Walnut for outdoor seating. Tom, you're up on this, I guess, to introduce it.
We got Tom McEnany on the line, our town council, to introduce kind of where we stand with the state. And Jill Mann is the attorney for 15 Walnut. She's here, I'm sure, to ask you all to. They've submitted an application to do outdoor seating. It's met all the requirements of what the state's looking for. So I'll let Tom kind of tell you where we're at, and then let you guys talk. I'm going to be quiet now.
Tom, you're on mute. Tom, you're still on mute.
Tom, you're on mute. There you go.
Okay, sorry about that. Joe, I did want to touch base with you on the revolving fund issue as well. I have a couple of thoughts on that, but on this, with respect to 15 Walnut or really any other establishment that's licensed in town to sell food and beverages for alcoholic beverages for on-premises consumption, you may have seen that the governor issued an order last week dealing with this subject. There is also pending legislation that that's before. My understanding is at this point it's been there was some differences between the governor's order and what the legislature wanted to do that have since been worked out. And the bill was engrossed last week and I believe has been submitted to the governor for approval. So, and that will essentially, it's pretty much the same thing as the order that the governor issued. So, in response to that, what we've done is we've drafted a couple different documents, which I forwarded to Joe earlier today. One is an outdoor seating policy, which the Board of Selectmen should adopt. So I don't know if you have that, if Joe has provided that to you yet, but you should, if not.
I have them, and I'm looking to try to share them just so you can see what they are, but they're really just implementation. They're just kind of implementation documents we give to 15 Walnut to fill out and sign it.
Basically 3 different documents. I don't know if 15 Walnut needs one of them, but one is an application for outdoor seating. The other is the town's general outdoor seating policy. And the third document is a license agreement in the event that the restaurant needs to or intends to use a public sidewalk or any town-owned property, which I don't know that they would need to do given the way that property is laid out. So the way we've set it up is that essentially with respect to the general approval of outdoor seating, that for the most part, it's all done by the town manager in consultation with other department heads as necessary to determine whether or not it's appropriate, safe, etc. The Board of Selectmen, as the local licensing authority, however, is required to sign off on the any application to expand the licensed premises for alcohol served. So we've tried to make it as streamlined as possible through the policy, the sample policy that we have prepared for you, to enable essentially the town to act quickly to give restaurants the opportunity to have outdoor seating in order to reopen as quickly as possible and try to get back into business. So that's essentially kind of where things stand at this point. I don't know if you have any specific questions about the policy itself or with respect to the guidance that there's also, in addition to the latest order, The state has also issued guidance in terms of what restaurants have to do as far as cleaning, wearing masks for employees, social distancing, the distance between tables and things like that.
I had a chance to look it over. It looks pretty straightforward. I mean, maybe not something to comment on was it November 1st was kind of we could reevaluate before or after that date, or it ended. There was
Right.
I can't remember what it was. Tom.
Yeah, it ends. So the governor's order, as well as the legislation that's pending, both provide that it shall remain, that essentially that any approval that's made pursuant to this or to the governor's order or pursuant to this policy is essentially sunsets on November 1st, unless it's sooner revoked or modified. So this is a temporary measure in order to give restaurants an opportunity to start serving people on premises. I think recognizes obviously that with the ongoing pandemic, having people inside the restaurant, it would be potentially problematic and could result in additional community spread. So the thought was essentially to move the tables from the indoors to the outdoors to allow service to occur. But it cuts off on November 1st. If a license holder wished, they certainly could apply for, they go through the normal process to seek to have their premises altered to include outdoor seating. And that would go through the normal process, which involves a notice. It has to be advertised. It's a public hearing. There has to be notice to abutters. They get sent a certified mail notice of the hearing, and the ABCC also approves the licensed premises.
Right. It depended on their previous license too, right? If they had a music license or whatever ABC gave them, it carried to the outside of the premises during this time. And then
Well, so this just applies
insurance, correct, for outside seating?
Well, this doesn't cover, it does not cover an entertainment license. It only
No, but
covers.
not an entertainment license, but I think if you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought it said if you had, say, an acoustic guitar player, say at 15 Walnut, it allowed you to have that outside. I believe it said that in it, or did it not?
No, it does not. Yeah, I think it says it does not apply to any entertainment license. And so essentially what the governor's order and the proposed legislation does is that it eliminates ABCC approval, which is obviously kind of time consuming, and it eliminates the requirement that abutters be notified and that a public hearing be held. So normally do that advertising.
Sean, what it says is you can only have outdoor entertainment if you already have outdoor entertainment. You can't move
Oh,
the
that
indoor
was
one outdoor.
that was my misunderstanding.
So, Jill, let me ask you this question: since you're trying to help, a local business get open and put people back to work, and is there anything in here that you have an issue with that you'd like us to consider or is everything good with you?
I haven't seen it, and I only was able to see it very briefly, but I mean, I read the governor's order, and I know what Attorney McEnany is saying. It's basically you have to keep 6-foot distance was what it requires. And then the document that we had submitted, we submitted the application even before we knew what the governor's bill was. So we had complied with the requirements of the ABCC for altering the premises, but obviously we didn't notify anybody because after we had submitted, then the bill came out. So essentially, I think we have already complied. Yeah, we don't have an outdoor area, but we did show the area. We do confine it, as shown on that plan that we submitted. We did make the written application, so that's fine. Oop.
It disappeared.
Yeah, but essentially, we do everything that was required. The masks are going to be worn. We're not expanding the entertainment to the out of doors. We don't require the license because it's all within the private owner's property. We submitted a copy of the lease that actually allows us to use those areas. We quadrant them off. It's an 800 square foot area, and we showed you that. So we showed that list. We showed the envelope. We have a legal right of access, which we demonstrated. We demonstrated that we will demonstrate that it's insured, it all is. All of those things are fine. And it is most certainly less than 50% because it's only an 800 square foot area.
A tiny little spot
It's
there.
very small, but it's better than nothing at this point. So we appreciate whatever this board would see fit to grant us, because it is essential that we open up as soon as we possibly can.
If I could just interject real quick. Last week, when we thought that we didn't realize that the legislature was going to act so quickly. I got the application on my desk, and I went through it based on what the governor's order said, and everything that the governor's order asked for was in that application. They did it top notch. If the board wants to make a vote tonight to allow 15 Walnut to begin to operate, subject to those to what was presented in their application. There's a little bit of paperwork with the new application that Tom sent over to us, but it will take them 10 minutes compared to what they've already done. And as Attorney Mann said, the site plan, as far as where the seating would be and how we'll operate, the lease agreement, the stuff from the landlord, it's all there. The proof of insurance is all there. So we're not exposed at all as far as the governor's order and even the updated legislative approval. So.
Would it be okay to make a motion?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion to a request of the 15 Walnut for outdoor seating. I'm looking for a yes vote, an affirmative.
So do we need to approve the document first?
My recommendation to approve the policy, procedures, and rules for use of outdoor space for food and alcohol service first, and then if, as Joe indicated, that the application that was submitted by Attorney Mann on behalf of 15 Walnut sounds from what Joe was saying is complete, then I think that the board can vote to approve that for outdoor food and alcohol service.
So moved.
Thank you, Darcy.
Sean Farrell, second.
All right. Any further discussion? So
Let's do two votes to be clear to follow Tom's recommendation. You're voting to approve the policies that we sent to you earlier today that were drafted by Tom, that you'll do that, and then you'll do another second vote to satisfy 15 Walnut's request, and we'll just make sure they follow up on the paperwork end of things, but they've already met all the requirements. Yes, Bill? Yes.
Just before you vote, if I could just put my zoning hat on for just a second. I think this is a great idea and I support it, but I would think you might want to add language. You said November 1st or be revisited in the event that the inside space is reopened, because there are in our zoning bylaw, there are requirements for seating requirements that plug into square footage and that sort of thing. So I think it might just to dot the i's, if there is an order before November 1st allowing them to open up inside, that it just
capacity
that they have.
So with respect to that issue, what the governor's order says, as does the pending legislation, is that it authorizes the town, essentially notwithstanding any requirements of Chapter 40A, a special permit variance, or any approvals thereunder, has the ability to grant this request to expand the licensed premises. So it essentially, what the legislation does, in addition to dispensing with several requirements under Chapter 138, the alcohol licensing statute, it also essentially allows the town, through its Board of Selectmen or delegated to the town manager, to override local zoning requirements for the purposes of allowing this outdoor seating on a temporary basis through November 1st.
And I would imagine, to your point, Bill, if the insides get reopened, it will be probably one of our first agenda items to kind of rescind the outdoor seating and back to kind of normal business, I would assume.
Oh, I get that covers it. Although I guess as chairman of the zoning board, override gives me the vapors.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so all those in favor, Darcy?
Darcy Dale, aye.
Bill,
William Olson, aye.
John,
Sean Farrell, aye.
Rosemary,
Rosemary Kennedy, aye.
and Jeff Hubbard, aye. Okay, so we need a second motion to approve for 15 Walnuts request.
So I make a motion that we favorably support the application 15 Walnut pending the completion of it and review by our town manager and town council.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor, Darcy,
Darcy Dale, aye.
Bill,
William Olson, aye.
John,
Sean Farrell, aye.
Rosemary,
Rosemary Kennedy, aye.
great. Jeff Hubbard, aye.
And
Terrific.
Thank you very
Jeff,
much. We greatly appreciate it. And,
yeah,
and,
thanks, Joe.
and Joe, you will email me those forms and I can fill them out tomorrow right away.
We'll email them, Jill. I think I have your email address from other stuff because HTC and stuff. I will try to email them to you as soon as I get off this call tonight.
So
There's a couple typos
Joe,
in there, Joe. Just spell check it before you send it.
Yeah, we'll do.
So Joe, if there's other restaurants in town that do this, do we need to will we need to vote on each one, or now that the
Yeah, they'll
policy's
have to
approved?
submit an application. So the other
Okay.
two that this would primarily affect would be the Weather Vane and Black Cow. Neither of them have stepped forward to say that they even wanted to do outdoor seating at this
What about,
point. I did try.
what about Honeycomb?
They don't. They mostly the sale of alcohol for them. It's a package store type of license. It's not. They don't serve alcohol there. They
But
sell
outdoor seating, they can do.
Yeah,
outdoors.
they could do outdoor seating. They already have some outdoor seating. They haven't seemed to want to do it, but
Just curious. I'm just curious how many you might see.
We'll have Patrick take a look at what their outdoor seating thing is and see if they need more, because they have a couple tables outside already. So I'm not sure what they need more than this, more than what they have.
With respect to the outdoor seating issue generally, the way we've drafted the policy that approved delegates to the town manager the authority to approve outdoor seating for restaurants if it's just food only. The only approval that the Board of Selectmen would have to sign off on is in the event that they require an expansion of premises for alcohol licensing, because the order and the legislation that's pending both specifically say that the local authority have to sign off on that. So that Joe, as the town manager, can kind of handle all of the application process, the review process. He can certainly make a recommendation, but ultimately the board, as the local licensing authority, will need to sign off on the expansion of premises for an alcohol license.
Another target on my back. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you. I'm going to sign off. I appreciate it.
Thanks,
I
Joe.
hope everybody visits 15 Walnut soon.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Okay, on to the next item. Approve backup for the 1/12 budget for July 2020. Marissa.
Can I real quick before Marissa gets started? And I just want to say, I want to recognize all the hard work Marissa and her department have put in. I mean, I know that this is short timing for you all to get this today, and we're going to ask you to vote on it tonight. And there's a couple of reasons for that, because we have a very short window to get this approved as a backup plan in case something goes wrong on the 20th. This is our backup plan, but Marissa has been, and Diane and Letitia and everybody in her department have been putting in massive amount of hours to get us ready for the warrant, to help the FinCom in their deliberations. We're making preparations now to close the year. We've extended when we can take taxes in, doing our regular work, making sure payroll gets paid and the accounts payable gets paid. I know it's not comfortable when we get things last minute and we ask you to make a vote on it. I wasn't even sure that we would be able to have you have this vote tonight, even though we put it on the agenda. I'm very thankful for all the time that Marissa puts in. I just want to make sure that we all recognize that this doesn't come together easily. And when we're done with this, she's going to start doing close of year so that she can then turn around on July 1st and open the new fiscal year. So I want to recognize that it's a ton of work, and as much as I understand what she does, I can't do what she does. So I very much appreciate it. Just start with that.
I'm clapping
Thank
for
you.
you, Marissa.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you. I appreciate it. So on to our third budget of the year, hopefully the last one too. And I know, fingers. And as Joe mentioned, this is just a backup plan. Hopefully it won't get to this. Hopefully we'll have our town meeting June 20th and we won't have to go with the 1/12 budget. So the 1/12 budget, we did get some guidance from the state as to what could or could not be included in the 1/12 budget. This budget needs to be submitted in Gateway. I've actually already peeked around to see what it entails. There's, I believe, 3 schedules that need to be completed. A certified vote is needed from the town clerk, and obviously the Board of Selectmen needs to approve this budget. So the 1/12 budget, you'll notice that it might look a little high for the month of July, but I just want to make sure, I know we've mentioned this in the past, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it needs to be 1/12 of the prior year. It needs to be at least 1/12 of the prior year, and it does not need to be equal throughout the fiscal year. So for the month of July, we do have some big payments that we normally do. The biggest one is the retirement, Essex Retirement Board. You'll notice that it's about $1,070,000 there. And we also get our property and casualty insurance. That's usually another bill that gets paid in July. So there are some big numbers because those are normal July payments. In those payments in July, we usually get some discounts. So if we pay the retirement system by the 15th, we get a discount. If we pay the property and casualty insurance before the 15th as well, we also get some discounts. So we're also trying to take advantage of some of those discounts. Other than that, we just went through and I looked at the month of July for the current fiscal year for FY20 and some of the previous fiscal years. And then I obviously consulted with department heads and asked them to look at what I had estimated for their July budget to see if they were in agreement. So that is what is presented to you right now. The only other thing that I'd like to mention is on the guidance from the state. There were certain items that could not be included, which is any activities for which you have any reason to believe that they will not be supported, increases in salaries called for in collective bargaining agreements that have not previously been approved by the legislative body, appropriations from reserve premiums, overlay surplus, free cash, stabilization, and other similar funds, and capital or other items. So you'll notice that this budget only includes COLA increases for 3 collective bargaining agreements that have been settled. Everyone else does not have a COLA presented in this budget. There is no free cash votes. No stabilization votes, and there's no transfers for this particular July budget. And I think that's it. I don't know if you have any particular questions. Again, hopefully this will be a backup plan and we won't need to deal with this again in August. And I also have, I'm sorry, the water enterprise summary. I've also presented the 1/12 budget. Again, similar guidelines. And I put together a summary for the Patton Homestead operating budget. So if you have any questions?
Marissa?
Yes.
Marissa, I have a question. Is this, when you put it all together, would this be more or less than the budget that we approved for the town? Because remember, this year we're actually reducing it 5%.
This is all based on the total budget. So in other words, even if we go with the 1/12 budget, in the end, it's going to be based on the total. So the total budget is still going to be the same that was approved for FY21 if we do get to this point. So at no point, the monthly budget would mean that we would end up with a higher budget than what we approved for the total for FY21 budget.
Thank you.
Marissa, does this mean if this is a backup in case something happens at town meeting or we can't have a town meeting, does this also reflect on the school budget? It would be a 1/12 plus school budget?
Yes, so you'll notice that there's actually, what I did, we pay a monthly assessment to the school. So what I did is I actually just took the total budget. That one was a simple calculation. You just divide it by 12. So there's $1.6 million, 1.685 under the school department.
And
it's actually on the last page.
And Bill, our moderator, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Now, there's been some talk that Articles 2.2 and 2.3 will be blended into one, but I've also understood that there may be a motion or an amendment to go to a 1/12 plus budget for the schools. So how would the wording, how would that be worded if somebody wanted to bring that up?
What the 1/12 budget, Darcy, would have to be you have to not vote for a budget for the entire year. So it'd be 1/12 until the budget got voted in, then it would completely. So it wouldn't. So there's no really point in voting for a 1/12 budget because if you eventually have to vote for the school budget, so it would just be one. So
yeah,
I don't know why you'd make that motion on the floor. That wouldn't really make any sense.
What were you going to say, Bill?
Well, I guess I'm trying to think this. You obviously have your ear to the ground more than I do. But they'd have to submit it in writing beforehand to be reviewed by me. And, you know, I guess, you know, I guess they could make so they'd have to submit it in writing beforehand so that it could be reviewed. And I would run it by town council. I guess it's within the bounds of the motion, so it's probably I would allow it. But
Hi, this is Tom McEnany. I think the better approach is that under the statute that deals with regional school district budgets, as Bill had mentioned, if you don't approve the budget, then it ultimately would go to a 1/12 if you don't have budget in place before the fiscal year starts. By statute, it goes to a 1/12 budget until such time as a budget has been approved by the member towns in the school district. So here, you know, obviously both Hamilton and Wenham would need to approve the school district budget. So I don't see, in my opinion, I think just the better approach is that if you want to go to a 1/12 budget, to just people should
the budget.
vote. Oh,
yeah, no, exactly.
Well, I would certainly point that out, but in town meetings, Hamilton of fairly recent past, moderators have allowed votes on matters that town council has opined we're not effective, essentially. So I guess I would certainly try to, if that's the case, try to dissuade someone, but ultimately they may be entitled to, I could rule they'd be entitled to a vote on their ineffective motion. I mean, it's happened before, so.
And the reason I'm concerned is that we don't know what school is going to look like. We don't know. There's a lot we don't know, and I'm thinking of harm reduction. because there are people in this town that are not going to be able to absorb an 8.25% increase. So what I'm thinking is if we can float the 1/12 plus budget until at least we can get an idea from our legislature and our governor what school is going to look like, it seems to me we can at least buy us a little bit of time.
Hey,
so
Joe,
that
can you
we
stop
are
sharing the screen so we can at least see each other while
wait a minute
Darcy's
now.
talking? No, I just want Joe to stop sharing the screen so we can see each other.
I'm not done.
I just want
And
Joe to
what I
stop
would
sharing
like
the
to
screen
do
so we can see
is-
each other. Darcy, you can continue talking. Thank you.
Just give me a minute and I will finish up. And what I'm saying is, I think if we could just buy a little time and find out what is going to be required of us without making a huge commitment of 8.25%, because if we also get extra funds either from the state or the feds, how are we going to make that adjustment when we know we have absolutely no leverage if we overfund the schools?
Well, that would go in the E&D.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Anything over 3%, they'd have to give back.
Well, after living here for so many years, I have seen that not happen more often than not.
And I'm looking at the chat here, and Michelle Bailey's chimed in. I'll just read her comment. And she's saying that a 1/12 budget for the schools, if approved, would be the same as a no vote. So the school committee would have to reconsider the budget and return to another town meeting. And then she adds, from the date of July 11th, Wenham town meeting, there's only 75 days before the next town meeting must be held.
Well, it just seems like, you know,
May I just, I think that this is a good discussion. I know you all need to have it. I think it's really pertinent to the next item on the agenda. This is just approving the 1/12 budget that we have to submit to the state just in case. I understand why it gets conflated because we're talking about 1/12 budgets. Last thing I'd like to say about 1/12 budget is the 1/12 budget is a misnomer as far as I'm concerned. What it really is asking the Board of Selectmen to ask the DOR for permission to expend above appropriation. Because technically the only way we spend money as a town is the town meeting appropriates it. So we'd be asking the state to allow us to spend more than town meeting has appropriated because town meeting hasn't been able to meet. That's why we're trying to have the town meeting on the 20th, and hopefully all that goes off like it's supposed to.
we may not have, but I guess this is the backstop for that if we have a spike in cases.
If we were to have a spike in cases or something, a hurricane hit, and we couldn't have a town meeting for 10 days, we'd be able to keep the lights on after July 1st. This is just an emergency backup plan.
So Joe, one other question on the 1/12 budget, because this is about that, not about the other thing. But if it was a 1/12 budget, the tax rate would stay the same until we voted on a budget. Is that how it works? I mean, what would our tax rate be for a 1/12 budget?
Good question.
So your tax rate's already been approved for right now, and it won't change again until after free cash is certified and everything else again in the fall. So the tax rate will continue to be applied the way it was after the most recent adoption of a budget by town meeting. So it would just continue to. It won't affect your tax rate right now.
It doesn't affect people's pocketbook for
not right now. No.
Until when?
Until you adopt the budget and approve a new spending plan. So
right. So it doesn't. Yeah. So whenever. So you're just you're just kicking the can down the road with a 1/12 budget because you eventually have to approve.
And you're not kicking it down the road effectively because the things that matter to our bond rating, like being able to put money into the stabilization fund and the capital stabilization fund, and being able to make a payment to OPEB, all those things that matter to us and the way we do business don't happen until we actually go through a town meeting process.
Right.
And the tax
Just to clarify, if I may, the tax rate is usually submitted and approved in December.
Happy Christmas.
Just if I could just return to the other 1/12, the other 1/12 discussion for a second. If people want to explore that, I had been contacted by a leader of EIE, which has now apparently resurfaced, and asking if they could, what the criteria would be for having a handout at town meeting. So I think for if you're trying to figure out what amendments may be presented, that might be a good place to start. Would be if I have my Karnak hat on. So.
Just to circle back to our original thing with Marissa here, I mean, I think we're kind of moving a little too far ahead. So I've seen the budget, I mean, briefly, but it's really only a month for the town. I'm willing to make a motion that I guess, would it be a motion to approve it, or would it be a motion to accept it?
It'll be a motion to approve it because, and then we're going to ask you to meet again by next Monday at the latest, because when Marissa submits this, she has to submit it with a certified vote, which only happens after you've approved the minutes of the meeting that the vote was taken. So we're going to have to have you take the vote tonight, and then have Mary Alice turn the minutes around very quickly so you can vote on those at your next meeting by next Monday at the latest. I know that originally we were a little concerned that Monday, the 15th, is the deadline to submit the 1/12 budget. Marissa has reached out to the folks and asked if there was some leeway in that. Isn't that what you told me last week, Marissa? That they might be able to get away with it up till the 17th?
There's no deadline. What I say is as soon as possible. Our concern was if we weren't able to present the 1/12 budget tonight, if we did it next Monday, would there still be enough time for them to approve it before June 30th? So that's our concern. We were kind of looking at year end, and we want to make sure that we have an approved budget for July 1st in order to continue operations. So that was our concern. It's not the deadline to submit it, but yes, we do have submitted as soon as possible. It needs to be approved. It's a certified vote. And just one last thing that I'd like to mention, if I could, is that I put this budget based on the information that was provided, but there's a lot of gray areas, and there is a section in their guidance that says if there's specific expenditures that we're not sure whether they can be added or not, that it will be up to the director of accounts to decide. So hopefully we'll submit it and we'll hear back from them and it's all fine. But if not, I would come back to you guys and just, with a revised one, if that's the case. That's how they're handling the situation.
Right. That was kind of one of my follow-up questions to you, Marissa, was how much of a working document is the DOR going to allow this to be when we submit it for approval? I mean, kind of the initial one, and then every month after that, like you said, there might be a change order or something we'll have to do, or a transfer. Hopefully they'll give us some leeway on that. And I see Tom maybe might know something too with the state. But, I'll make a motion that we approve the 1/12 budget that Marissa presented to us.
Before you consider that, Marissa, may I, just for clarification, ask you, the 1/12 for most line items is based upon the fiscal 20 budget, is it?
It's a combination. It's based on fiscal year 20 and also based on discussions with department heads on what their plans were for the month of July.
So every month we go forward, if we're doing it on a 1/12 basis, at some point, it has to be adjusted to achieve for fiscal 21, the 5.2% reduction.
Correct.
And you're comfortable that can be achieved?
Thank you. Yes, the total budget for FY21 should not be higher than what was approved. Just keep in mind that there are certain months that they're going to be much higher than other months, depending on the bills that we have to pay for that particular month. So the month of July is actually a pretty high month, but then August, maybe not so much. But in total, the budget should not be over what was approved for FY21.
Which is the 5.2% reduction.
Correct.
And what about schools?
The school budget right now, it's just, I just took the total amount, the total assessment and divided it by 12. And that's what I'm presenting in the July's 1/12 budget,
And the total assessment for fiscal 20?
21.
Well,
Well, that has not been determined.
Correct, but it would be adjusted if, it doesn't pass.
So is it 1/12 of a school budget inclusive of the 8 1/4?
Correct.
So that sounds, at least on the surface, somewhat troublesome. Why is it not 1/12 of the assessment for fiscal 20?
That's not what their requested budget is. We're looking at we're not, so all of our other numbers are based on our FY21 budget, not at FY20. If we did it based on our FY20 budget, we wouldn't be able to afford some of the services. We have COLAs, we have increases in the cost of services. So all the numbers are based on FY21. If for some reason the school budget doesn't pass, then all it means, and if we continue with this 1/12, all it means is there's going to be 1 month that there's going to be an adjustment to bring it back to what the approved budget for the school ends up being. But all of the budget is based on FY21 numbers. If you look at our retirement assessment, for example, I can't put last year's assessment because that's not what our assessment is for this year.
No, I understand that, Marissa, but I apologize for extending this. I thought you had said that with those kind of exceptions, retirement, for example, most line items are 1/12 of the fiscal 20.
No, it has to be at least 1/12. It's not 1/12. It's a budget based on our FY21 estimates.
And in the case of the schools, it's based upon the school request.
Correct.
Which is 8 1/4 above the fiscal 20. And if the ultimate vote on the school budget is such that the 8 1/4 is not approved, then what happens?
We would need to adjust it in future months.
So
In total, we would not be paying more than what the approved school budget ends up being. So if the school budget that gets approved by town meeting is less than the 8 1/4, that's what we will be paying the school.
And just one further question. What if the 1/12, for whatever reason or reasons, is extended for a number of months? How are you going to, and then assume the school 8 1/4 is not approved, but something less is approved? How are you going to do that in the remaining months? That's what I'm trying to conceptually understand.
Well, we would have to reduce the remaining month's assessment. And also, we'll have to get additional guidance from the state. I don't know how long, to be honest with you, in a normal year, usually they allow the 1/12 budget for 3 months. I don't know if there's new guidance. I don't know if Tom, if he knows of any additional guidance, but normally when they do the 1/12 is through September. Whether they're going to allow for more than the 3 months on the 1/12, I actually don't know the answer to that.
I don't either. I don't have the answer to that either.
Just so you know, Michelle Bailey in the chat has noted that if the school budget is still at a 1/12 on December 1st, the state would take over the district.
Right, that's correct. So the regional schools are different. There's the statute, which is General Laws, Chapter 71, Section 16B, deals specifically with the regional school district budgeting process. So, and the specific guidance generally, but also there's specific provisions that'll apply to town districts. But yes, that is correct, that if there is no budget in place, then by December, then DESE will take over the district.
And Tom, they could impose a budget upon the towns?
Right. Yeah, they will determine how much money that is required to run the district, essentially. I don't know. I don't know whether or not this happened, or certainly how frequently it happens, but DESE would take over. They would run the school district. They'll determine how much money is necessary to run the schools, and they will.
They just won't pay for it.
You will. You'll
Yes.
pay, in accordance with the district agreement, of course, but they'll determine what the budget is, and then it gets allocated in accordance with the agreement.
Does anyone else, thank you. Does anyone else from FinCom have any questions about this? Okay. Thank you.
You had a motion by Sean. Nobody had seconded. We had got sidetracked. Darcy seconds?
Seconded.
Yeah.
Okay, all those in favor, Darcy,
Darcy Dale, aye.
Bill,
William Olson, aye.
John
Sean.
Farrell, aye.
Rosie,
Rosemary Kennedy, aye.
Jeff Hubbard, aye. All right.
Okay.
Thank you, Marissa.
Thank you, Marissa,
Thank you.
very
Thank you,
much.
Marissa.
And
Thank you.
Diane, you say yes. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Next up is discussion of the ATM script, speakers, presenters, and final votes.
The easy part of the night.
I hope. Get three.
So we have kind of all the pertinent people here. I'm going to, again, try to be as quiet as possible. I think that moderator, the town council, and your two committees have a lot to discuss. So I will leave it in your hands. I know Tom has already started work on a script. So if you don't mind, I'll let him, maybe set up the conversation and see where you guys want to go with it.
Sure. Thanks, Joe. So I basically been working off the script that we used for the special town meeting last October. And so I, been kind of following that along. I think basically, what I'll need to get at this point is just who is going to, I have the introduction for the moderator, and then it's just going to be a matter of who's going to be presenting the various motions. It's more or less kind of filling in the blanks that in a similar fashion to what we've done in past warrants.
Maybe an easy place to start would be just to list those articles that are going to be part of the consent motion.
Yeah. So in the first, article, kind of, I guess maybe the best way to do this is to just go straight through the warrant. So article 1, the first article is to hear reports from town officers and other committees. So is there anybody who's planning on giving any type of a report that you know of? Bill?
It's suggested that the reports be, a motion be made to accept the reports in writing and have them displayed on the town website, and that no reports will be read at the town meeting. I think that was what the recommendation had been earlier when we were preparing the warrant.
Okay, so I'm not even sure that would be so much a motion as it would just be, when the article comes up, I think just the moderator can say that, in order to, because of
expedite the meeting, yeah.
circumstances that we're working under here, that this year there won't be any reports given at town meeting, that the reports are all have been submitted and will be available on the town website. We can just leave it at that. So
Can I just interrupt for a second, Tom? Just kind of logistically for the reports, and Bill, Mr. Bowler can maybe comment on it. Is there kind of a time frame we want for those reports? So we want to have them up before town meeting, I would think, so that people can have some time to disseminate them and read them? Or what's the thought on the cadence or timeline for having those reports? Would it be after, before?
Some of us, some people, really enjoy the reports. I guess I'd put myself in that category, but thinking back on past town meetings, there's a lot of people that, are like, don't bother me with this. So I guess I'd say, don't worry about it. You want to get a report up there or you'll get chastised for it. But, I don't think you're going to have constituents that are going to give you grief if it wasn't up before a town meeting. So
maybe if they're available, they can be a day or so before, something like that, maybe, and we could send out some kind of a thing saying that they're online and with the warrant and etc.
Right.
Okay.
May I add, when we talk about reports, is that the same thing as the presentation by the BOS chair and by the FinCom chair? That's going to be in writing this year, not delivered orally.
Correct.
I know you're getting heartburn now, David.
Okay.
Next up.
So, all right. So with respect to that one, then Article 1-2, I guess what we'll just say, have the moderator just make a statement then, which we can craft, that will just basically say that because of the unique circumstances of this year, that the reports will be posted online.
Right.
And hopefully they're up before then, and or we can fill that in as we have more information about when they'll be.
And traditionally, there's been sort of a fairly long. The moderator has, set out the ground rules and everything. I'd like to cut that down. Most of the people I suspect who will be there will know where they're supposed to sit. And, I mean, there are obviously health things that we want to address, but some of the, I'm sure as you look at past scripts, there's things that we can just say, refer to the warrant, which it sets out what we're doing. I mean,
right. And
Okay. Yeah.
Bill, when you were talking there, it kind of reminded me of that we're using the electronic clickers this year. When do we want to present, hand out instructions, etc. with those? Do we want to do some, I would say it would be a good idea to put something up online beforehand, and then also, Bill, you at the beginning of the meeting, maybe give a little instructional thing or something. I don't know what people are thinking.
Sure. I think the Greg, who's been in, part of the planning meetings, will be providing them. I think I will recognize him because he's the expert to tell people how to use it. He's going to, have a couple of sample questions for people to answer so that they, know how they're working.
Right.
I'm going to ask him to change the who's going to win the World Series question this year. But unfortunately, that sort of thing. So I was going to let him do that.
Okay. Perfect.
Makes sense.
Okay. So, so the next article is the consent agenda. And so I have as the listed articles that will be included in the consent agenda, Articles 2-1, 2-5, 2-6, 2-7, 2-8, 2-9, 2-10, 2-14, 3-1, 3-2, 3-3, and 3-4. And so the moderator would take a motion. If somebody obviously has a question or otherwise doesn't want an article included in the consent agenda, can call out hold. And that will be either deleted or from the consent agenda, or if it's just a response to a question, then, if the question is answered satisfactorily, then perhaps the person won't necessarily want to have a separate vote on that. So, and then assuming that there's no objection to including all of those on the consent agenda, then we would, after the motion to create the consent agenda has been voted upon favorably, then we would then take a vote to act upon those articles.
May I ask, had we decided not to include 211? That's the patent.
That was never on there to my knowledge.
Right.
Okay.
Who'd like to introduce the consent agenda?
I will.
Okay, Rosie?
I would say you, Jeff. I know Rosie wants to, but I would say you could be the hero here. This is your last meeting.
Yeah. It doesn't matter to me. I'm happy to do it. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I think that's good.
All right.
Okay. All right. So
And I'm not taking notes here, but is somebody writing down who's going to say what here? I'm hopefully.
I hope.
I hope so.
Yeah. Well,
I'm taking notes, and I think Tom is as well. So I think between us, we'll get it figured out.
Okay. So that I wasn't clear on that actually. So in looking at the last script, anyways, it didn't indicate who was making motions. Do you want me to include that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Typically.
We have two scripts, kind of. One is the the warrant that everybody gets, and then we have a script at the FinCom and BOS table that says who's saying what.
Okay.
And there's typically the exact wording of the motion is laid out for them.
Right.
Okay. So, and I'm sorry, is it going to be Darcy or Jeff who's going to make this motion?
Yeah.
Jeff. Okay.
Yep.
And Joe, I'm sure you have a copy of a script you can send Tom too, so he can look at.
Okay.
On the basic budget, since we do want to, we are trying to pare things down compared to some years. On the basic budget, how do people feel about, typically the moderator reads the general line, not line by line, but reads categories. Are we okay with that, or do people feel we don't want to do any more? We used to do a lot more, but and then people can call out holds, or do we just want to?
I'm okay with that in terms of the town budget part of 2-2. It's fairly straightforward in terms of the goal, a reduction from fiscal 20. And however you wish to summarize it, that would be fine, I think.
Okay.
But there is likely to be a complication as to 2-2.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, but
I'm not touching that one.
So, okay, then I guess we'll go with the way it's been. I'll read the general categories, and if people want to put holds on, they can. But
I think that's fine. I don't think there's going to be too much hubbub about that part of it.
Okay.
Okay. So who's going to make the motion?
Should be a FinCom member since it's a financial.
Yes. FinCom has not had an opportunity to discuss who's going to do what here, so we might as well do it openly. My suggestion is, since different members of FinCom had writing responsibilities for the commentary based upon specific article assignments, I was going to suggest that we just carry over that responsibility in terms of who's going to make the motion.
I think that makes sense. Yeah, I agree.
Any objections to that from FinCom? Okay, so the only other question as we go through the list is whether somebody from the board wants to make a particular motion for a particular article. But otherwise, Joe, I'll email rather, those assignments. If FinCom was going to make the motion, I'll give you those article by article assignments. And then if BOS wants to do a particular article, I don't think we'll object to that.
Can you copy me on that email too, David, so that I can insert that in the script?
Sure.
Thank you.
Yep, I just have one question. I wasn't clear, FinCom, who did the text for 3.1? Anybody tell me that? John, do you have that?
I think I did it at the end of the day.
Okay.
So
3.1 is also in the consent calendar.
It's in the consent, yeah. I mean, I would be
So-
backup on that if for some reason.
Right,
If for some reason it gets held, we'll need to have it.
right.
Right. Okay, so I'll supply Tom and Joe with that and Jeff.
Okay. All right, next up.
Okay, so the next article is 2-3. And 2- let's see. 2-3 and 2-4 are both not part of the consent agenda. And so 2-3 is to raise and appropriate a transfer from available funds an additional sum of money to defray the expenses of the school district. So that was essentially the amount above the 5% increase that was included in the budget.
Yeah, I want to interject here, and whenever it's appropriate to begin this discussion, it is likely there'll be a motion to consolidate, as there was 2 years ago when we had the split warrant, to consolidate 2.3 into 2.2. So I guess, Bill, I'm going to ask you, I would like to participate in a discussion of that motion.
So I guess I'll have to get my town meeting time and figure out how this plays out, because presumably the motion to consolidate will have to come before Article 2-3 gets presented or at least voted on. So,
or even, Bill, pardon me, 2-2, since the motion would be essentially to amend 2-2 to capture the totality of 2.2 and 2.3.
True. So I'm gonna have to give that some thought, and if Tom has some thoughts on this, I'm happy to have him weigh in, since I'm not one of those people that is trying to protect my moderator turf from the rest of you.
So Bill, I had another question though too. There's been discussion about some board members of some of these boards may want to speak to the minority opinion, and we haven't talked about that yet, and I'm not sure where that makes sense to come in. But my recommendation was if you want to speak as a minority opinion against what your board voted, you should do that as an individual citizen and do that.
I think that's correct. I mean,
Okay.
Boards vote. It's the vote of the board. And I've been on both sides of those votes, so I know, and it can be frustrating, but if you want to speak as a minority opinion, I think you have to speak as an individual, not as a member of the board. So
let's discuss that. I understand you're saying, Bill, that the minority report, if there's comment on that, has to be as an individual citizen, not at the podium, but at the mic. Is that what you're saying?
I think so. I mean, they could certainly say, everybody's going to know if they've been sitting at the finance committee or board of selectmen table who they are. But I think it does need to be, clear that they're speaking as an individual as far as that goes. So,
Are there going to be tables this year in light of the kind of social distancing?
Yeah, just to be clear, to be able to fit as many people as possible under the tent, what our current plan is to have the first 2 rows situated, dedicated, and looking at the stage for the FinCom and the Board of Selectmen. No other tables. We don't want you to be that close to each other, even though you're all very close to each other. We want you to also model the behavior that we're expecting from the rest of the participants. So we'll have the first 2 rows will be set up for the FinCom and Board of Selectmen members, and then everybody will sit behind you. But so you won't be at tables per se, but we'll definitely be a designated area for FinCom and Board of Selectmen to be.
So Bill, if I may, I'm told, I don't have direct knowledge of this, but I'm told that in the past, when there have been minorities in a given board vote, the minority view has been allowed to be expressed as part of the board's presentation. Just if I may, just as in our commentary, we have a text supporting the view of the 3-person majority, but we also have text regarding the view of the 2-person minority as part of the FinCom report. And I'm told that that's been an acceptable way to present at town meetings in the past, but I'm quick to say I don't have personal knowledge of that.
I don't think so.
I don't know. I can't recall specifically, and you may be right, but I guess I would say my view as moderator is that boards vote as a board. And so I would just ask people who weren't on the majority of the vote to speak as individuals. So,
and so I, of course, shall comply with your view on that, Bill, although it's disappointing to me in terms of informing the public fully. But what about time constraints?
I guess I would say whatever time constraints I set, which I haven't set yet, you're speaking as an individual. So
I think to kind of Bill's point, and in the past, if a board member has had a dissenting decision from a board decision, that they've either gone to the microphone and spoken as a citizen separately, or if they've stood up at the table, they've made it very clear that they're speaking as an individual, not as the board.
Oh, I have no doubt that distinction has to be made clear. I haven't said otherwise.
Right.
What I'm asking, so I guess I'm asking mechanistically
kind of
now,
time
Bill.
for the dissenting decision or the dissenting view to speak your mind if you have a dissenting view.
I'm asking, Bill, do you want the dissenter to go to a microphone, or can the dissenter speak from the podium?
Well, it sounds like the way the setup is, the boards, unlike the usual town meeting, you're not going to be set up facing the crowd. You're going to be sitting in the first 2 rows. So it's not going to be an issue because it's just going to be different. And you're going to have, so if you're sitting in the audience, so you're going to have to, so to speak, you're going to have to go to a microphone. I don't know that we haven't talked about having a pass around microphone, but I think in this case, I don't think it's going to make a physical difference.
So, pardon me, I'm still unclear. May I speak from the podium, making clear that I am presenting a minority view?
Well, what do you mean by podium?
I understood from what Joe had described, not tonight, but in some other communication, that there were going to be a couple of podiums. Is that
Yeah,
not?
but I think the podiums are going to be for me, and they're not going to be for the boards.
So can I stay where I am? So can I stay where I'm located and make it clear that I am speaking in terms of a minority view? May I do that?
I'm certainly going to let anyone speak about, to speak and let their view known. But the way this is going to be laid out, I mean, it's still a work in progress, but I don't think it's going to be like it is when we're in Farini Auditorium.
No, I understand that. I'm not trying to be argumentative at this point. I'm seeking clarification. I'm giving you an opportunity to tell me where to go.
You're going to go to wherever citizen goes.
Oh, David,
I know. Come on,
David,
let's
you
go.
may
Let's move on.
you may not want to do that, but anyway, I think we'll work it out, and I'm sure that no one, when you get up on your hind legs to speak, no one will be unclear that you are a member of the FinCom and that you have a definite point of view. I promise you that.
Thank you. And I would ask for some time leeway to make my presentation, understanding that you are sponsoring brevity.
Yeah, I think we got to be consistent, and we got to be brief. So
I'll sleep on that and work on it, but you work on it too, David.
I understand. I'm absolutely willing to find a compromise there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. I'm sorry. So we've covered. Have we now? We've covered 2.3 essentially, but we have yet to cover procedurally how we deal with the motion to consolidate.
I think it has to be a motion to amend the budget under 2-2, and then assuming that it's amended to include what's in 2-3, and if it gets approved, then we would pass over 2-3.
No, I understand.
Right.
What I'm asking is, once a motion is made to consolidate, which is reasonably foreseeable, I'd like an opportunity to speak to that motion. May I do?
Can I offer? I just try to shorten the. I think what David's asking is, when a motion gets made to amend a motion, there's usually a debate about the amendment. So will the folks who advocated for a split vote be allowed the opportunity to explain their position when somebody stands expectedly so to rise and join the motion, join the articles? I guess is what he's asking for.
Once again, the FinCom voted favorably to not split the vote. So once again, the minority position is. I'm trying to figure out so it gets confusing with what they're speaking to and who speaks. What if it's not even a motion on the floor yet?
Let me clarify for you. FinCom voted favorably on 2-2. And as Tom says, the motion to consolidate is essentially to amend 2-2. So FinCom ought to have an opportunity to comment on that.
FinCom also said we shouldn't split the vote before it was split. So So don't
I know you're,
see- yeah.
I know you're defensive of the schools.
No, I'm not
Bill.
defensive. I'm pointing out
Well-
facts. So Dave, don't call me defensive. I'm pointing out facts. The facts are that FinCom voted to not split the vote.
Defensive of the schools.
No,
All I'm
I'm
saying,
not. I'm
all
talking
I'm
about just
saying
facts,
is
just votes.
Well-
that since
Just
Tom,
votes.
that
Your
since
board
Tom-
voted not to split
that
the
since
vote.
Tom indicated that a motion to consolidate 2-3 into 2-2 is an amendment to 2-2, and since FinCom voted favorably on 2-2, if a motion is made to essentially amend it, FinCom ought to have an opportunity to comment on that motion to amend something it favorably recommended.
What did FinCom vote on 2-3?
Favorably.
3-2, with some hesitation on one of the.
That's the
It was
vote,
favorable.
that's the vote, that's the vote of the
Still a
board.
favorable.
It's
So it
favorable.
was a
That's my
favorable
point.
vote?
Yes.
Yes, of course.
Correct.
But also FinCom voted 2-2 favorably. And as Tom has said again, a motion to consolidate essentially is amending 2-2.
To include 2-3, which you
To
voted
include
favorably on.
2-3.
And
Which you voted favorably
FinCom ought to
on.
have an opportunity
FinCom approved,
to
right?
discuss that.
Yes.
So Bill, I'm asking for that opportunity.
Well, I guess I'll say, so we're talking about town meeting on the 20th. Then I think any potential motions I'd like to have submitted in writing a week before. So, let's say, so by the 12th. So, I mean, will I look at them after that? Sure. But, if I didn't get it a week before, so I have a chance to figure it all out, I'm not going to be favorably favorable. So,
Yeah, and again, I'm asking respectfully, Bill, will someone from FinCom have an opportunity to comment on the motion to consolidate if it's made?
well, certainly
Can I
if
ask
there,
something, Bill? Bill, can I say something here? What prevents any citizen from making a comment on a
Well,
motion?
that's right. I think, let's call a spade here, David. You're looking for a little bit of special treatment because you're on the FinCom. And, I guess my answer is, if you're in the minority on a vote by your board, then you're just, I say that with quotes, a citizen. So you'll get whatever respect, and that will be dual respect that any other citizen will. But I'm not inclined to give any board member who's been in the minority of a vote, extra time, that I'm not giving any other citizen.
Can we move on from this somehow? We got a lot of stuff to cover
I know you wish to move
We've
on.
gone through this 5 times, and
But
I think we got
Bill-
the same answer 5 times.
Bill,
So can we move on from this, please?
Bill, I'm in the majority on 2-2.
I don't care. I'm not, I'm supposed, obviously I have views on things, but I'm supposed to be the umpire. And I'm just telling you how I see it as an umpire. And as an umpire, if your board voted a majority one way, whoever's in the minority, they can speak, but they don't speak for the board.
Yes,
So-
Michelle Bailey is texting that this is a waste of time, which is reflective of the untoward influence.
Can we move on, please?
School
Can we please
committee.
move on?
So Bill,
Jeff,
I take.
this is
I
because
take
this is
respectful
not
exception
productive,
to
and it's
being
not what we're here to
limited
do
this
tonight.
way.
Talk about David's speaking time. David, you're allowed to speak as a citizen, so we can move on from this. You've given permission to speak as a citizen at the town meeting. Let's move on, please. I beg. We have lots of stuff to cover tonight, David, and we can't spend any more time on this.
So, well, maybe we can. I wish to comment.
No, we're not, well, that's up to, it's
Jeff?
up to whoever's running
Let's
this
go,
meeting.
Tom. What's the next one?
Wait. I'm one of the chairs of this group here, Jeff. And I want to express to Bill, before we move on, that I am respectfully disappointed in the constraints you're imposing.
Well,
So I'm ready to move on.
But please understand, David, that when at town meeting, I am the law west of the Pecos.
That's why I'm
No,
moving on.
I'm not, just, shooting the breeze here, but, I think we've got a lot of constraints, including health and other things. I want to do the best we can for what is the purest form of democracy, and I will endeavor to do that. But I'm not going to let anybody run roughshod over, this town meeting. I am the boss.
Run roughshod? That's a bit of a hyperbolic characterization.
Well, yeah, well, I've been known to do that. So.
Bill, I have a question, Bill Bowler. How much time would a citizen have to point out their view on any motion?
And remember, they're citizen legislators. They are legislators. Right. And they come to the microphone.
This is something I'm giving thought to.
Yep.
I hate long speeches. I think if anybody doesn't know that anymore, but I'm only one vote, but I would like to say we'd give people the same amount of time that we've had in usual times, but I haven't given it a definite amount of thought. But if you can't make your point in 1 or 2 minutes, you can't make your point, and that doesn't matter if you're on a board or you're just a citizen. And I do have a very good very sensitive repeatometer. People at town meeting get somebody says something and then somebody's got to up and I got to say the same damn thing. I'm sorry. I love town meeting, but there are issues here. There are health issues, and I want this to be a working democracy, but I also want people to get in and get out healthily. And I also want to encourage people to come to town meeting. It's not like it was 100 years ago or even 30 years ago when I moved here, when it was like a social thing. People's lives are different. They want to make a difference, but they should just do it quickly. So I'm not going to cut anybody off. But if they go into, Hamlet's soliloquy, well, yeah, I might cut them off. So.
Okay. The only reason I asked is because it might help people to develop their speeches if they know that there's a particular time limit.
There's been a 3-minute limit. And
I think if you can't say it in 3 minutes, you can't say it. So.
They usually have a timer.
Oh, yes, there'll be some kind of a timer. I'm working on that. So.
Okay.
All right, Tom, what's up next?
Jeff, is the school going to make a presentation?
I assume so. Nobody's here from the school.
Yeah, Michelle Bailey and Jean are on.
Oh yeah, Jean. Yeah, Michelle.
So I assume that the same limits will apply.
Yes.
Correct.
Thank you.
You mean a 3-minute presentation?
Yeah, there's never been 3 minutes on the presentation. That's totally different than the comment, right? There's never been a limit on.
The superintendent has the statutory right to make a presentation of their choosing.
And the moderator has a right to determine the length of that.
No, not true. But anyways, we need to.
Well, actually, I do. I don't intend to be, to cut people off, but I just think, that, I'll give each board board the same amount of time. And, I think the schools can, make I haven't determined a particular amount of time, but, basically what I'm hearing is that there are some people who may be on boards who are in minority positions. And my view again is they are citizens and they'll have a particular time. So they're not going to have the same amount of time as the selectmen, the board of selectmen, or the finance committee, or the school committee. And I will ask anyone to keep it short. We have a lot of issues here. It's not just how Bill Bowler feels about long presentations, but we have health issues. So I want to keep this. I think we all want to keep this short, and we don't need to have long soliloquies. So Michelle, if you're I know you're there, if you take that back to the superintendent, I think most of us pay it. Anyone who's at town meeting is paying attention to the issues. So 95% of our minds are made up. So keep it short.
Hey, can I ask Jeff, is it okay if I ask a question of the school committee members that are here?
Yeah, sure.
I'm just wondering, is Julie going to be around still, or is someone else going to be making the presentation? And if so, could we have the presentation ahead of time so we can post it like we're trying to do our other documents and reports?
We typically get the presentations at least 3 or 4 days ahead of time to put them all into the presentation deck and everything else. So I'm hoping that we'll have that by next Tuesday or Wednesday at the very latest.
Are you having presentations? Like, are you having a PowerPoint with AV and all of that?
Not much of one. I mean, I think in the past we've had several slides to explain the town budget and different various articles. My assumption is that our PowerPoint this year for the 2.2 will be very brief, maybe a slide or two.
I'm sorry, I guess that's not my question. My question is, are you actually going to be showing slides outside?
We're using an LED screen so people will be able to see them.
Okay. All right, thank you. The answer is
Jumbo
yes, the
screen.
superintendent will still be there,
Jumbotron.
but Jean, do you plan to present, or do you plan to have Julie present?
Julie and I can talk about it. I think she would probably present the school from the school's perspective.
Yeah, and I would just say, Jean, you and Julie maybe give Bill Bowler a call and work out the details of kind of getting the Prezzo kind of abbreviated to its most important points. And then if you want, I think, more information, we can put that up on the website, more complete report.
Yep, understood.
We also have been talking about having a one-sheet handout just because to keep things brief.
Yeah.
So it's hopefully in creation, and we can get that to Bill Bowler, the moderator, to approve.
Can I just interject to Michelle and Jean and Michelle Hogan? I see that you're on as well. Thank you all for showing up tonight. Anything that you get to Bill Bowler to be cleared by the moderator to be presented. The moderator has previously told me that he doesn't want like a box of stuff within the area. So we can either put it on the seats, or there's going to be a different area, Bill, prior to walking in where people can pick up things. So we're trying to interact. We're trying to reduce interactions between people. We don't want people standing there handing out papers, but we also don't want people reaching into the same box to take papers out. So if you can get me enough to put on all the chairs, we can try to do that when we're putting bottles of water and snack bags out on all the chairs. We'll do that too.
Sounds great.
What are you expecting for attendance at the town meeting? What do you guys?
We've got 154 chairs. Based on the poll, I'm starting to get a little nervous that might not be enough, but it's about where we tend to be. So I'm hoping that 154 will be enough. There might be some standing room only around the outside or the edge of the tent, properly socially distanced. So we'll figure out a way to make it safe if we get over that 150 number. But we'll start out with 150 on the chairs.
Okay, got it.
Joe, will you be televising this as well?
Bill Melville will be taping it. I don't know if he's got the ability to broadcast live from there.
Okay.
All right, Tom.
Okay.
Moving on. Here we go.
All right, so, I guess we're still on the budget article 2-2. So presumably somebody could make a motion to amend the budget for the purposes of increasing the school expenditure by the amount in 2-3. So who wants, is there a FinCom member, I think, who is going to be making the motion on the budget?
Yes, I'll give you, that'll be part of the list I'm going to give you, Tom.
Okay.
I don't think it'll be a FinCom member who's going to move to consolidate, but one never knows.
Sure, right. Okay.
It's
So,
often
and
been
then, if obviously,
it's often been a Hamilton member of the school committee,
Correct.
possibly. So,
okay. So, then we're on to 2-3. 2-3 is, if assuming it doesn't get consolidated, then it would be voted upon. So who's going to make that motion?
Again, that'll be in the list, Tom, that I'm going to be supplying to you.
Okay, so that's FinCom though. It's not a different board, it's FinCom. Okay. 2-4.
But you're raising, as you go through the list, if Jeff, if BOS wants to make a given motion, just please chime in.
Right, okay.
Okay, the next one that's not part of the consent calendar is 2-4, which is to approve borrowing authorized by the regional school district. FinCom as well.
Yep, the FinCom, that's yours and it'll be on the list, right?
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. The next one that is not on the consent calendar is 2-11, which is the Patton Homestead budget.
This one I think probably should be a Board of Selectmen. I don't know. What do you guys think? How do you feel about this?
Sure.
Board of Selectmen? Who'd like to do it? Sean?
Yeah,
Okay, Sean Farrell.
Okay. I'll mark that down. Okay.
Tom, while you're looking at the list, we skipped over those that are going to be on the consent.
Right.
But if one of them is successfully held, and then
Yeah, you said you were going to give me the list of who would make the motions, right?
That's correct. But I wanted Jeff to have an opportunity if as to any of those the board wanted to be a mover. That's why I'm asking.
Okay.
Let's maybe get through the stuff that's not on consent and then we can circle back.
Yeah.
Okay. The next one was 2-12 and 2-13 are not on there. 2-12 is to appropriate money to the stabilization fund, and 2-13 is to appropriate money to the capital stabilization fund.
FinCom?
Yes.
I mean, Jeff, I'll do one. I mean, I like to do one motion, but we can figure out what one that is, but.
Okay, Bill. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Can we make that decision now? Just since we're doing this, if Bill wants to do one, Bill, would you prefer to do stabilization or capital stabilization, just to make this easier for Tom to help us draft the script?
And I'll do the other one, whatever Bill doesn't do. It's not, I'm not fussy about which one.
Okay.
Okay.
So you want to say, since Bill spoke up first, we'll say Bill Olson to move 2-12 on the stabilization fund, and Rosemary Kennedy to move the 2-13 on the capital stabilization fund.
Sure, that's fine.
Thank you.
Good.
Okay. And then the next one, actually the only other article left is the citizens petitioned article at the end. And so it was, at least my understanding, Joe, is that was likely to be passed
Right, and
over.
the petitioner will have to make a motion.
Yes. So
The petitioner would have to make a motion to pass over, right? So we need somebody from either the board or the FinCom to stand up, present the article, and make the FinCom's recommendation and the Board of Selectmen's recommendation for unfavorable action.
Right.
And then the petitioner could stand up and say, I move to pass over. Is that right?
Well, sure. I mean, anybody can make the motion on the article, so it could be the petitioner, one of the petitioners, whether it's the named person or somebody else who was part of the group that petitioned it. It could be a board member. So, anybody can make it.
I think it's going to be Larry Sargent who was the petitioner, is my understanding.
So do you want us to put down that it's going to be Larry Sargent, and if for some reason he either doesn't come or doesn't show up, we'll ask Jeff or one of the members of the Board of Selectmen to stand up and make a motion.
Right.
That sounds good.
So procedurally, the first, either someone from BOS or FinCom will make the motion as printed in the warrant. So Jeff, does the board want to do that, or FinCom?
Well, do we want to do that, or is it just going to be that the petitioner just gets up and says, I move to pass over the article, somebody seconds it, and he gives an explanation why it's being passed over?
Whichever is the easiest.
I think
didn't know if the motion.
We typically just
read.
ask the moderator to recognize
Larry
the
Sargent.
petitioner, Larry Sargent in this case, and then the mic goes to Larry, and Larry says, I make a motion that we take no action on this article at this time because XYZ, and then we move on.
Well, technically, Sean, according to Tom's prior advice to us, it has to be a motion to pass over.
Right.
Well,
Is that
no, that's one term. I mean, you can say indefinitely postpone, pass over, take no action. There's no real magic words associated with it.
Well, all right. I thought those were magic words. Whatever will facilitate
Moving it
this,
off.
getting this done. I would just ask.
As I'm looking, Article 3.1, I just would point out a typo. It's marsh rats in the brief summary. So as you're going through, they dropped an S. So
good catch, Bill.
So I just want to give Larry Sargent adequate advice, or have Joe do it. I just want him to be clear as to what he is expected to do.
I appreciate, David, that you think I could give adequate advice, so thank you. I appreciate it.
David, to your point, maybe Tom or Joe and Bill Bowler can help give him a little script on what to say.
That's fine. Yeah.
We'll plan to talk to Larry. I'll try and give him a call beforehand, but we'll definitely plan to brief him ahead of time. Talk to him that day. Make sure he's all set.
And nobody has to read the warrant. No one has to read that as a motion.
The motion would be to pass over the article. That's the motion.
And that goes immediately first.
Yes.
And then does anyone do you want some explanation?
I mean, I think if the petitioner, Larry Sargent, makes a motion to pass over the article, then somebody will second the article. then the moderator can ask for an explanation, and either Mr. Sargent or somebody else could give the explanation of whether it's I would say it should either be Mr. Sargent or a member of the Board of Selectmen, or Joe, as the town manager, can say, the reason why it's being passed over is because, that the board has agreed to, at least on a temporary basis, eliminate the pay-as-you-throw system and to have weekly trash pickup.
They didn't agree to that.
Or whatever it was, whatever the reason is, right?
So pardon me, Joe, are you going to make that explanation?
Will you join?
I mean, yeah, if that's what everybody wants, if Larry stands up and moves to pass over and they want an explanation, we'll just say that, given that we were trying to shorten the town meeting this year because of the pandemic and wanting to keep everybody safe, the petitioner understood the need to make this as quick as possible, and he has agreed to ask for this to be passed over, and we expect that, so we'll come back before town meeting at either the fall or next annual town meeting.
He essentially has cooperated.
Right.
In the interest of, et cetera, et cetera.
And I will thank him for his cooperation.
Yes.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Is that it?
I think so. Is that it, Tom?
Yes, that covers everything that's in the warrant, so that's not on the consent agenda. So I'll need to get whoever will be making the motions in the event that an article is pulled from the consent agenda. I'll need that, but more is kind of for emergency use only, hopefully. And otherwise, I think that covers everything.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so
Yes, Darcy.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Second,
Can we agree? Are you guys
So-
going to meet again next Monday, Board of Selectmen? I don't know if you need it to be a joint
Yes,
meeting,
Sounds
but
like we need to, right?
Yeah, the only thing we haven't done yet, we haven't recommended 2-2, we haven't voted on recommending favorable, unfavorable action on 2-2 or 2-3. So if you want to do that next time, we can.
okay.
yeah, I thought we were going to do that at the town meeting.
Well, no, we were waiting for the school to vote
you
the
gotta-
budget, which they have. They voted it last week, and they sent it out to everybody last
So-
week. So
And will we need to meet before Monday though, Joe, wasn't there something that was pending with the DOR or something like that, or?
So on the 112 budget, we need to enter a certified vote. Marissa and I talked around about how to do that. I was concerned that we wouldn't get our 112 budget in time. And she reached out to them and they said that it's not a hard and fast deadline. As she explained earlier today, I guess it's not a hard and fast deadline of the 15th that we'll be able to submit the budget and the certified vote after you accept the minutes of the meeting next week. So if you want to meet Monday, and one of the items will be to approve the minutes of this meeting that Mary Alice, I know, will work very hard to get them to us.
Yep.
Okay.
You can, we can ask the town clerk to certify the vote the next day after the minutes have been accepted, and then that will go in, so.
Okay, good. So next Monday.
we'll do that next week, the 2-2, 2-3
We'll do
as
that.
well. Is that what people want to do?
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like it.
Sounds good. And we can also talk next week too about if anything's held, who will speak to what if we need to.
Okay.
Sounds good.
All
Yeah,
right.
let me get the list from David of who all the FinCom members. I mean, most of the articles this year's town meeting are virtually all financial articles. Typically, the finance committee moves those articles anyway. So even if they get held, they're all pretty much financial articles. So we'll go through the list next week and make sure that there's nothing that you want to do differently. Okay.
Perfect. All right. Thank you all very much
We didn't do a roll call vote yet.
Right. Roll call vote.
Oh,
Darcy,
Darcy Dale, aye.
William
Bill,
Olson, aye.
Sean,
Farrell, aye.
Rosemary,
Rosemary Kennedy, aye.
Jeff Hubbard, aye. And thank you, FinCom, very much for
you.
getting through this with us tonight. And thank you, Bill Bowler.
Yep.
Okay.
FinCom should also
Stay
take a
safe.
motion.
Who died to his brother.
FinCom's got to do their meeting.
I would entertain a motion from FinCom to adjourn.
I
I
still
move that we
move.
adjourn.
And
I
second.
second. I'll
Uh,
second it.
All right, Valerie.
Valerie McCormick, aye.
Christina has not come back, I don't think.
She had to leave, yeah.
Yep. John,
John Perlich, aye.
Nick,
Nick Tenson, aye.
Dave Wenger, aye. Gesundheit. And I want to thank especially the moderator for his courtesy and patience this evening.
Keep it short, David.
I just did. What could have been shorter than that?
Between the two of you, it was a long meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
All right, good night,
good
all.
night, good night, everybody.